blah 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 blah.
Like Danny could be at that.
Hello everybody, I just want to say, Dave the Harper has commented saying, come on, you're late. Trust me Dave, if we'd have come on 10 seconds earlier, you'd be throwing up, because Steve is on the shitter. So apologies everyone, if you hear some weird noises in the next few moments, it's because Steve is on the loo. Hello and welcome to our Tell You What TV podcast, where we're going to be reviewing the Australian Grand Prix from this weekend. We're also going to be reviewing Steve's poos. So yeah.
I was going to say it were a hard one, and I wasn't about the race. Steve, however, how are your turds?
Sloppy.
Disgusting. Oh, put your microphone on mute. What? This has got to be the most disgusting way we started the show. See, Dave, we should have waited. We should have just been late. I mean, what I will say though is, to be fair, Steve has only been awake how long? What, 20 minutes?
You want me to come off mute and tell you? About 20 minutes.
About 20 minutes. And so 20 minutes ago...
I've been up since 6 AM.
Well, 20 minutes ago, like I say, Steve was asleep. And the problem is, when you're asleep and doing a podcast, you end up in situations like this.
Oh, done. Just a picture of me. What's that?
Oh, bloody hell, that looks brutal, Steve. That looks like you've really took a pound in there.
Now we know why
It's not funny.
Now we know why his shit's sloppy.
Yeah, it's been stirred up, all right.
Oh dear, disgusted. Thank you, Claire, for sending me that picture though. Okay, yeah, we are going to talk F1. We're going to talk the Australian Grand Prix. We're also going to have a look at the predictions that we made over the weekend. I think there's a couple of key points from the race though, but I do just want to quickly mention, unfortunately I wasn't able to watch any of the pre-show or anything like that. I was literally only able to watch the race. I did get to see practice and qualifying, but I did only get to see the race footage, so I've no idea what happened with the grid walks, with the non-grid girls, with any of that kind of stuff. So feel free guys to give us your thoughts on that. But I think that there's two main things that I want to quickly mention from my point of view as major key factors. Number one, how disappointing was the weekend, the race for Haas, and number two, how the fuck can someone effectively go from second place to winning the race under a virtual safety car?
Well,
But it was actually third, wasn't it?
Well, yeah.
Well, did Vettel deserve to win that race?
No.
No. So I think there's got to be something done about that. Not to change the result, but for the future.
Raikkonen had done a way better job all weekend.
Yeah.
When he came away with third and his teammate won. It's like,
Well, it was funny that on commentary they were saying, how are Ferrari going to manipulate this to, get Vettel in front of Raikkonen, but they managed to manipulate it to get him in front of Hamilton as well. Well,
the thing is, I mean, for anyone that might be listening that thinks, oh, you're just Hamilton fans, that's why you're pissed off. To be honest, I'm not that much of a Hamilton fan. I respect what he can do, but I wouldn't say I'm a big fan. And if it was the other way round, I'd still be as miffed. The only thing I suppose I could say in the opposite direction, because I'm well against what happened, is that the virtual safety car is supposed to nullify the race, right? And when you look at it from that point of view, at the point the VSC came out, Vettel was leading, Hamilton was second and Raikkonen was third. And when the VSC... I thought for a moment then that was Steve's arse giving way. Yeah, when the VSC started, Vettel was leading. When the VSC and safety car ended, Vettel was leading. So as far as nullifying it and keeping things the same, it did. The positions were only gained from where Vettel would have been under normal racing circumstances when he made his pit stop. Same with Alonso. Alonso made gains. But the problem I have it with is the point that James mentioned to me or to us, and I heard it on the commentary when I watched the race on the replay, is if there's that much of a time gain by pitting under the virtual safety car, then why don't all the drivers just go, right, when the next VSC comes out, we'll drive through the pits every lap?
Yeah,
it's not just to do with that though, and this is something that I think they missed out on. What you've got to remember is when Hamilton pitted, Vettel was going round at full race lap speed. Yeah? But when Vettel pitted, all right, Hamilton's going round at what? 70 mile an hour, 100 mile an hour at VSC speed. Yeah. So it's the time that, I mean, Hamilton, I didn't see Ted's notes, but I know that in the after show, Hamilton's lap was like something like a 150 or something under the VSC. I mean, a 1 minute 50 lap when they were doing 126s. Yeah. So there's the time that Vettel's gained. It's got nothing to do with the fact that going through the pit lane is going to be quicker than having to stay out on the track. It's the fact that when Hamilton pitted, it's in a full racing situation. When Vettel pitted, it wasn't. It was under the VSC when all the other cars are going around slowly. That's where the time's gained.
I mean, the thing is, it happened in GP2, I think last year or the year before, and when it happened, then I was actually disgusted.
Monaco.
Well, it did happen at Monaco, but it also happened at Hockenheim. It happened at Hockenheim before it happened at Monaco, right, in GP2, right. And when it happened at Hockenheim, I was furious. I think it must have been the year before when they were testing it in GP2, and when that happened, I was like, hang on a minute, how was a guy from third place, right, now in the lead because of the virtual... That's not right for me. Now, there would be people that may argue the other way, and that's why I made the point of when the virtual safety car came out, Vettel was leading, and when the safety car period ended, Vettel was leading. So it did nullify the positions there, so to speak. But it doesn't change the fact that the VSC affected the result of the race.
Yep, and it shouldn't do.
Yeah.
It shouldn't do, in my opinion. And I'm not saying that because I'm a Hamilton fan. I watched it and I was really pissed off that Formula One is in a situation where that is possible.
But I think something similar happened the other way around last season, where I think... I can't remember what race it was, but Hamilton pitted under the safety car and came out just in front of Sebastian.
Yeah.
I can't remember what race it was. What race were it now? Anyway, I think it were literally the other way around. So in a way, sitting there as an average viewer, if I'd have been an average Joe who'd never watched Formula 1 before, you would be like, how the fuck's he done that?
Mm-hmm.
But knowing, obviously, being a bit of a hardcore fan, I were a bit like, boot were on foot last season, so let's see what Hamilton can do now. And once again, it just proved my point that these cars cannot follow each other.
Well, it's interesting you say that. There's a point I want to make on that in a moment. Now, regarding the virtual safety car, I mean, okay, what are the solutions? I know they hinted about it on the commentary, right? If you had, instead of having a virtual safety car or a safety car situation, and you basically got all the cars to stop, the positions wouldn't change. Vettel still would have been leading, Hamilton still would have been second, and Raikkonen still would have been third. Even if the drivers were allowed to change the tyres, it would have had zero effect whatsoever. And you couldn't say, right, well, everyone's got to stop, but you can't change your tyres, because then Vettel would go from being in third to basically being dead fucking last when he is when the race gets going, and then he pits. So I don't know if there's a proper solution for it, but what I will say is, and this is something I picked up on the commentary, I don't know if you noticed this, well, you know when you see that a car's parked at the side of the road, I don't know about you, but I sit there and go, I wonder where they're going to move that car to. Sometimes it's obvious, right, and sometimes, especially in Melbourne, you can tell that people have been told, right, at this corner, if you can, position your car here. Like last year in Australia, I think it was, Ricardo parked his car on the inside of turn 4. It's way away from the apex at the car park, and it's exactly where one of the Haas drivers parked his car as well. And the cars, Grosjean, and the cars are just left there, right? Because it's well out of the way, it's right up to the barrier, and so that's where the drivers have been told, okay, there you can park it. So when the second Haas car pulls up on the exit of turn 2, I'm looking and thinking, well, where are they going to move that to then? And then the commentator says they might have a problem moving that car because there is no service road there. For the next 2 or 3 laps under the virtual safety car, you can tell that the car has barely moved. The marshals are trying to push it and it's not going very far. And already at that point, I'm thinking, well, hang on, if the commentator knows there isn't really anywhere for that car to go, why wasn't the safety car brought out straight away? Because if you're going to have marshals pushing a car some distance down a straight, get the fucking safety car out. Because when you look at the situation of Alonso coming out of the pits and Verstappen trying to overtake him on the pit exit, that's under VSC. So the drivers are still racing. So, yeah, there we go. Bit of a rant on that one anyway. Anything else on that, guys?
Do I still get that? I said that Hamilton would win the race. I think I should still get given that.
No. we'll get to our shit predictions in a bit. But yeah, I was not happy. I was disappointed with the VSC situation. What I will say is, at least Hamilton didn't seem to be a mardy bitch on the podium about it.
Yeah, that was a bit of a refreshing moment with
Mark Webber.
Hamilton. But yeah, no, I just sort of thought to myself, you know what? Shit like that has happened before. And when Hamilton did say, when can I go? Sod it, I'm going for it.
And then went off.
I was sat there watching it. I thought, right, here we go. Let's see what he can do. And then as soon as he went off, I thought, I literally like, oh no, couldn't believe it. But that's because I'm a bit of an Hamilton fanboy, unlike you two.
It was like one of those moments though, where it was like, hey, watch this, and then you fuck up.
Yeah, it was one. I did laugh. I was like you, James. I was like, okay, yeah, come on, show us what you got. Go and get him. And then when he did that, I was just like, I giggled to myself. I was like, fuck you know, that's one way meant to not be yourself, isn't it? Right, okay, James, you mentioned about overtaking around Australia. Now, we've mentioned before that obviously James is running his Project Cars League, Steve's racing in an F1 league, and I'm racing in an F1 style league as well. And the race weekend started this weekend just gone at Melbourne. It was an absolute disaster for me. Problems with the game made it unplayable. So weeks of practice for a race, and then half an hour before the race, the game just doesn't want to play properly for me. So,
blame the tools.
Oh, well, honest to God, there's a graphics engine called DX11, which I believe is the cause. It basically made the game unplayable. To put into perspective, usually the game runs at about 60 FPS and it runs absolutely fine. Its maximum FPS after testing why I had problems last night was 20 FPS. Which basically means you're running in slow motion. Like everything you do is 1 to 2 seconds delayed. You can't race when it's like that.
In order to have normal fluid motion, just basic cameras, it needs to be at least 24 frames a second. So if you're missing 4 frames, then it is literally like being at a third speed of what it should be.
Yeah, it's impossible. So anyway, after a really frustrating 3-lap race, I was fuming. To be honest, I was still fuming last night, and I raced on Sunday. I had a commentary to do for another race after mine. And I was still fuming while trying to do the commentary. I was trying to be happy and professional, and I'm thinking, I just want to chop everybody's fucking heads off. But during that race, I asked my co-commentator an interesting question, and I also asked it to the podium drivers, and none of them could. I don't think they really got the answer I was trying to sort of lead them towards. And the question was this: is Melbourne a difficult track to overtake on, or is it a difficult track for F1 style cars to overtake on? So what do you think?
Right. Well, unless it's raining, yeah, you can't. It's just. I mean, you've got that much DRS, and you have 3 DRS zones, and they still couldn't pass each other. I mean, what else do you need to say?
Well, this is the thing, right? Why can't they pass each other? Because they can't get close enough. Why is that? Dirty air wings, we know the deal, right? A Porsche 911 doesn't have these big ass wings, so would they have a problem overtaking each other around Melbourne? Would a GP2 have a problem overtaking around Melbourne? Because there's been races last season where they'd say this is a difficult track to overtake on. You watch the GP2s and it's like, they don't have a problem. Okay, they're all fucking mental, but they're not having a problem.
Aussie V8's overtaken around there.
Yep.
Yeah, when I was there in 2015, the Aussie V8s were absolutely mental. I was watching it and I was just like, God, if the action is as good as this. I was just sat there during the Grand Prix and I'm like, this is such a letdown. I mean, the only exciting bit was when Alonso went upside down. But yeah. I was just like, this is such a letdown.
Yeah. So it would suggest then that it's the F1 style cars that have the problem then. But there we go. I mean, I will say that I have made a few notes, and we will get on to Haas in a second. But overall, my main comment about the race was boring and more overtakes than last year? Question mark? Because on commentary they kept saying more overtakes than last year, and I'm thinking, I ain't fucking seen any overtakes yet, mate.
Yeah, indeed. There were no where I were like, oh, this is amazing or not like that. I mean, the opening couple of laps were alright, but obviously they're going to be more bunched up.
I mean, one of my first notes is, well, I'm just going to say, one of my first notes is Bottas. You know, I was actually, my notes are Bottas can't overtake, but then I've put question mark Australia. Is it the circuit that's preventing Bottas to come through from 15th on the grid? Because he should have had a car that was easily able to, you know, in lap time wise, be able to get past those cars in front of him.
Yeah. Well, to touch on that, I saw a comment from a racing driver earlier today, right? And it was Max Verstappen. And Verstappen's comment was, this was from the Die Hard F1's Facebook page. So let's see, it goes, if the Australian Grand Prix was any indication, F1 fans could be in for a particularly boring season, according to Max Verstappen. Because Verstappen said, even if you are a second or a second and a half faster, you still can't pass. As a viewer, I would have turned off the TV, and until something changes, it will stay that way. Now, Australia has been that way for a number of years. It doesn't create the most exciting of races. It doesn't create the most exciting of overtakes. And I don't, as much as I love Australia, I love the track, I don't think it should be the opening round of the season. Because you get all these new fans going, oh, new logo, new music, oh, let's have a look about F1. Well, this is fucking boring.
Yeah, exactly.
Maybe they should give Adelaide a run every now and again.
I don't think Adelaide would be any better, because that's point, squirt, 90-degree corner, point, squirt, 90-degree corner. I don't think that would work. But if they because it's 90-degree corners, you need and the slowness of the corners, you need less aeros, so the aero efficiency is reduced there. So potentially they should be able to run closer together. I don't think it would work. You look at Singapore.
Well, that's just a shit circuit.
But it's the same style, street circuit, point squirt, 90-degree corner. It don't work in Formula One. But you look at Silverstone. At least you can overtake, you can attack into Stowe. I think there are other tracks where they could kick off the season and it be a bit more of a race, because that's what the first round of the season should be, really. I think it should be something that goes bang, here's F1, let's see what the rest of the season holds. Not, well, that was fucking boring, let's
I was just thinking as well, I've just come up with an idea that would solve the VSC problem with somebody pitting under the VSC. If you pit while the VSC is activated, you must have a standing 5-second stop-go penalty before the pit crew touch the car. That adds 5 seconds onto your pit stop, wham, problem dealt with. Or maybe 10 seconds, whatever they deem it necessary to be.
Well, it'd be a difficult one to impose. I see what you're saying, right? The only way the FIA could do it, right, would be to say, okay, in a racing situation, we're going to take this car as an example, something from, say, the middle of the field. It would take, okay, you have your in-lap, your pit time, and your out-lap, right? That's a whole combined time, and it takes X amount of time. And then you get that same car to go, right, do 2 time laps without the pit stop, right? Problem is, the pit stop time is going to be exactly the same. The only thing that differs is the length of overall time under VSC, right? So to impose right, your pit stop under VSC is going to have to be this long to compensate for the time, teams would turn around and go, well, legally you can't do that, you're imposing a penalty for nothing, unless the penalty is for pitting under the VSC. Now they could do that, they could say, right, under virtual safety car or the safety car, the pit lane is closed. Teams would then argue, well, what if we've got a problem? What if we've got a puncture or damage, or we need to box? You could say, well, that's why you get a penalty. I'm not sure that would be the way to do it. I mean, David, I'm saying just ban pit stops during VSC, but like I say, the teams would just go, you can't do that, because if for safety reasons we need to pit, we've got to be allowed to.
Yeah, I mean, you think about it, if there's a car that's been caught up in an incident that's created the VSC, and they've got a flat tyre, they can't keep going round on a flat tyre till the VSC stopped.
Yeah,
they're going to pit and change the flat tyre.
And then what happens? You can guarantee there's somebody that's going to go, well, you know what, my car's fine, but if we can pit now, we'll gain. Well, we'll tell them we've got a slow puncture. And then...
That's why you give them a penalty.
Go on, James, you were going to mention something.
Well, we did have a situation back in like 2008 when it was like, oh, you can't pit now because pit lane's closed. When the safety car came out, and then you had people pitting anyway, and then they got penalties, which basically ruled them anywhere out of finishing in the points. So it was like a bit of a too harsh thing, really. To say the pit lane's closed, but I don't know. I just think at the end of the day, virtual safety car, I don't see the point in it. I really don't. I understand what it's there to do, but why not just throw a safety car?
Yeah.
But for the first lap of the safety car, it's like VSC until everybody catches the safety car, and the safety car literally goes around for the first lap at 50 mile an hour until the majority of the field is all bunched up, because everybody under VSC would be going maximum 100 mile an hour. They'd eventually catch the safety car at the end of the first safety car lap, and then from that point it's just a normal safety car. I just don't see why that can't come in.
I mean, it's an interesting one. I don't think we're going to have the answer to it. I don't think the FIA have got the answer to it. I mean, Toto Wolff did say sometimes with the luck you get bitten, and sometimes you're the one that does the biting. This week we got bitten, and like I say, I've not brought it up because I'm a Hamilton fan or anything like that. It's just, it's a little bit like in football. If something unusual was to happen in football that meant a team won, like, okay, Luis Suarez a few years ago for Uruguay handles the ball on the line, stopping, was it Ghana from going through to the finals or semi-finals. So he handles the ball on the line, it's no goal, he gets sent off, he purposefully cheated, but the guy then misses the penalty and Suarez's team goes on to win. It's blatant fucking cheating, but everyone goes, well, the rules have been applied. Yeah, but it's not fucking right, is it? It's not fucking right. And that's I think is the problem with this, that yes, there's rules in place and stuff like that, but it just ain't right. For me though, they shouldn't have the situation where they go, right, let's bring out a VSC, oh no, actually we need the safety car. It should be, right, this is a VSC situation or this is a safety car. They should have known once that car pulled up where it did, that's a safety car situation, not a VSC situation.
Yeah, exactly. Well, like I say, if it was just a safety car, but for the first lap, you've got, it's like VSC conditions. I just don't understand. I don't know, but I just think to myself, why does it have to be so much of a ball ache? You know what I mean?
Yeah, but do you know what it actually was that made it the difference between a virtual safety car and the safety car? What actually triggered the safety car? And yes, it was because the marshals couldn't move it, but it was the fact that they had to take heavy machinery onto the circuit.
Yeah.
Well, I understand that, but hang on a minute. Are you telling me that the marshals on the circuit trying to push the car would have been okay? I mean, what's the difference between heavy machinery moving a car down the circuit, the marshals pushing the car down the circuit? To me, that's the same. There's a slow car going down the circuit with lives at risk.
Yeah.
Whether the life is to the marshals or to a driver in a race car, it's still the same situation. Straight away, that car stopped in a difficult situation. It's a difficult place to move it. It's on the circuit. It should have been a safety car straight out the back.
Mm-hmm.
And if that had been the case, Vettel wouldn't have been third. I mean, Vettel would have been sixth or seventh or even at the back.
I mean, what makes it even worse, and maybe we'll get on to Haas now as well, is what makes it worse is, right, you've just seen one Haas pull up because its wheel's not attached properly. The next car has pitted and has pulled up because its wheel's not attached properly, and you're expecting marshals to push the fucking car down the road when it hasn't got a wheel attached properly. Somebody somewhere's got to be sitting there going, you know what, that might be a bit difficult to fucking do. But no, they don't bother doing that. They go, oh, g'day mate, it'll be alright, have another fucking beer.
Yeah. I don't know, it just baffles me that in this day and age, they're just so...
Yeah, I tell you what, I just can't believe though that Haas would go down the route of going, let's help Ferrari win.
No.
Okay, I don't believe that. I'm just saying it because that's what people have been saying.
The thing is, though, right, if that was the case, Grosjean's car would have been parked where the first Haas parked. But I want to say something about this as well. That the first Haas that stopped, it was the rear wheel that wasn't on properly, so he had steering, so he was able to put the car in a suitable place. The next one, it was the front left that wasn't on properly, so maybe he didn't have steering good enough to be able to put the car anywhere else. I'm saying, okay, he's come out the pit lane, he's made turn 2, but it's all pretty much straight really for him from there. But you know, if you're driving a car that's not got a wheel on properly, if it's a front wheel, I think I'd be worried a bit more than if it was a rear wheel.
Yeah, I can see what you're saying. I I don't know. It just baffles me, and this is just another thing. I mean, all last season I was moaning about the amount of air on these cars, and once again, I mean, nobody can get past each other unless there's a hairpin. If there's a hairpin, it gives people like Danny Ricciardo enough room to try and do a full-on kamikaze move. But at the moment, it's just not even. It's not even on. You've got to do a really, really dangerous move to get past. Now, with the FIA banging on about safety, it's safer to have cars that can actually follow each other and overtake safely than forcing the drivers into a situation where they've got to risk their life to get past.
It's a good question.
Something I noticed about the cars this season as well is how many more extra bits and pieces there are around. Well, not just the front wings being more intricate, but behind the front wheels you've got extra bits coming here, there, and everywhere with, all bits and slits in them. But there's so many more bits on them.
The side pod is like a 20 blade razor, and I'm just saying, what? Fuck.
It's like a cheese grater.
Yeah, obviously it's giving them performance because they're doing such a great job. I mean, in terms of their ability, I mean, yeah, I know that it's probably like 50% of Ferrari, but still, to be that good, I was quite surprised at their actual pace.
I chuckled to myself, just after the start. So I was like, oh, they're going to show a replay. And I'm thinking of you, James. But then I was like, you know what? As much as James doesn't like K-Mag, he had the best start of everybody, and he's doing well. He was up to fourth, and he was doing really, really well. I mean, to be honest, Haas were potentially on for a best result of their career, which I thought was fantastic.
The replay wasn't until lap 4. They didn't do any replays until lap 4.
Yeah, they did wait.
Which I thought was good.
They did wait a little bit.
But then they missed an overtake because of it.
Well, maybe that's why I didn't see many overtakes. But, I mean, to be fair, with Haas, I mean, there have been people that have been saying that, they did it on purpose to help Ferrari win. No, they didn't. Fuck off. All you got to do is, like the commentator said, is you have a look at the response of the people in the team. There's no way that was they were absolutely devastated. There's not many things that would get grown men crying. Sport is one of them, right?
I mean, put it into perspective. Ferrari have got more lorry drivers. Ferrari have got more lorry drivers than what Haas has got team members.
Yeah.
I mean, that puts it into perspective.
Yeah. I mean, I am pleased for Haas that their car seems to be handling well. I mean, from watching the practice sessions, you could tell looking at it that it did look planted, it looked good. And as they were saying, you're probably not going to hear Grosjean complaining about the brakes this year. And as much as it was a bit of a joke, but it was frustrating hearing him going on about the brakes all the time last year. It's one of those things. As sim racing drivers, we know if you don't have confidence in your brakes, there's pretty much no point. You're racing. So for driving a real F1 car in that situation, I would have hated it. So if their car is now handling, it'll be interesting. So this season, James, you're going to either have to eat all of your words from last year saying that K-Mag is shit, or he's going to fail, Grosjean's going to beat him, and you'll be able to carry on getting at him.
I feel quite confident, but I think the wheel nut situation was like my little curse I put on the team for even being there, But I was also surprised at the relative lack of pace from Mad Max.
Yeah.
Because in the qualifying, I was thinking, you know what? He's probably going to do a decent job in the race, and then it actually got to the race, and he were nowhere.
It's a double-edged sword, though, isn't it? I mean, it turns out he had a bit of damage on the car, which is going to affect the downforce, going to affect the grip. But when following a car and pushing, I mean, this is something I know from doing all of my prep work for the race this weekend. Around that track, if you're following someone closely and you're pushing and you're getting your rear out 2 or 3 times a lap, you're in trouble, because your tyres are just going to die.
And how did your race go this weekend?
Well, let's put it this way. In 2 seasons and a potential of 88 laps, I think I've completed 7 laps in Melbourne, in actual race situation, which is very frustrating. But no, I mean, for Max though, the amount of times the rear was going out on him a little bit, and every time it does that, it's damage. So it doesn't matter how quick he's capable of going, there was nothing he was ever going to be able to do. But it was a bit of an interesting situation for me with K-Mag, because I was sort of more focusing on K-Mag. Verstappen is a good driver, and for me it was, right, okay, K-Mag, we've been saying you're shit for a while, prove us wrong. And I kind of thought of, we've seen him do some dodgy shit over the last couple of seasons, being too aggressive against people that he doesn't really need to be aggressive against. However, if he's battling for 3rd or 4th and he's aggressive, I think we'd perhaps enjoy that a little bit more, you know, because it shows that he's fighting for his position.
Yeah.
Is it aggressive or is it stupidity?
But I ain't got a problem with him being aggressive. What I've got a problem with is him out of the car just being a complete cunt.
So that's what the K stands for, James.
Yeah.
Although actually, a cunt mag is probably something completely different to many people.
Yeah. I don't know. As well, I just don't know what he's playing at with his facial hair. He's blonde and he's got a beard. He just looks like Santa.
He's a young Santa.
No, but he doesn't even look. He looks more like the Milky Bar kid than Santa. And I don't know. There's just something about him. It's just really annoying. I'm really glad Ron Dennis sacked him on his birthday.
Yeah.
Happy birthday, you sucked.
Here's your present, P45. Okay, just having a quick look at. I mean, I've got a few notes from the race, and they're all sort of in racing order. First 4 laps I found a bit dull. I mean, the only sort of thing that happened at the start was K-Mag gaining a position, Bottas getting squeezed, gaining none. But I was surprised that there wasn't a single crash on the opening lap.
Yeah, they were all very well behaved on the opening lap. Yeah. And Raikkonen even had a slight go at Hamilton at the end of towards turn 3.
Yeah.
And I've got to say, overall, Raikkonen looked a way better driver than Vettel all weekend.
He did. I mean, I was impressed with the way that Raikkonen was, because there's always that question of, has Raikkonen still got it? Has he still got the desire? And I've always had the opinion of, if he's in a race-winning situation, there's probably only Alonso or Hamilton that you'd rather have in the car. Is more than capable. So for it to turn out the way that he did, I was pissed off for Raikkonen, especially hearing some of his radio, where after Raikkonen had made his pit stop, his engineer had basically sort of said, right, okay, you need to sort of be doing this pace. And then 2 or 3 laps later, Raikkonen's asking, has Vettel not pitted yet? And his engineer goes, oh, no, he's not stopped yet. Oh, and by the way, you need to pick your pace up because he's going 2 tenths faster than you. And Raikkonen sat there going, why don't you fucking tell me he's not pitting? Tell me to fucking push. If you tell me to push, I can stay ahead of him. But now, he's going to stay ahead of me. What the fuck are you doing?
Yeah, exactly.
So,
that's the problem with Formula 1. So that's the problem with Formula 1. You can't race them to the limit every lap. So, I mean, why is Raikkonen not going as fast as he can every single lap? That's not his fault. That's the team giving him a delta time to work to. That for me is not Formula 1. It's like at the end of the race with Hamilton. You know, you saw him on his engine, attack mode 8, which was actually meant to reduce it from 14 down to 8. And it's like, well, he drops 5 seconds off in the last 2 laps. Well, I didn't want to see that. I want to see him attack till the finishing line.
Yeah.
And a lot of it's to do with engine and gearbox and saving parts and maybe fuel economy. But I want to see a race, and it wasn't a race. It was drive round to the finish line.
Yeah, as well, I were sort of. Well, this is it. I really, really wish it got to a point where the drivers can have a button to sort of rant or talk or say what they want, but the team shouldn't be able to contact the driver other than the pit board. I'd love that, because then you would see the drivers pushing. They won't know what the fuck to do other than push, because that's what's in their head.
Yeah.
Whereas, because they're being taught to like little babies, oh, go on, hit this target lap time. We can't be doing with this. Come on, no. It'd just be down to the driver going, fucking hell, I need to push.
Yeah. I mean, this is the thing. I mean, you mentioned about Hamilton's radio comment. I mean, I thought it was funny where it's like, can I push now? Can I go now? Are you there? Okay, I'm going for it. Well, that situation, I mean, that tells you he sat there wanting to push harder. He's waiting to be given permission to use his engine. And I'm sorry, that is ridiculous.
That is ridiculous.
I mean,
and as well,
go on.
If he wanted, yeah, it might hurt him further down the season, but he must have been told, look, save your engine. Think about the long game.
Yeah.
But why? I mean, yeah, you might get a penalty for a new engine, but what does it matter? That you must know that if somebody who's using a power unit that's 6 races old versus a brand new power unit, yeah, you might start at the back of the grid, but you might be bloody a second a lap quicker just because you've got a newer engine.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, and that is a very good point. I mean, well, I mean, we talked a lot about engines and shit like that, and I don't really want to get on too much about engines.
But you can't overtake if you start at the back of the grid.
Well, yeah. But I don't think... I really don't think it is right. I mean, I loved the commentator's comment when the trophy was given to Vettel. It says, a replica of... oh, shit, I've forgotten his name. He didn't say that.
We're Alan Jones?
No, not Alan Jones. It's older than Alan Jones. Brabham, replica of Jack Brabham's steering wheel, and Brundle goes, he didn't need any buttons, did he? and he's right, he didn't need any buttons on his steering wheel. I mean, it's fucking right. An F1 fucking engine or car should not be as complicated as a fucking jumbo jet to drive. I mean, it's a fucking joke. I mean, the amount of times... I mean, in all fairness, we went to Donington about a year ago, and there were classic car races there, and it was the old style, like, it looks like a big metal coffin with somebody sat half out of it kind of thing. And to be honest, they're not very quick, but as you see them driving around the corners, you can tell they're holding on for dear life. And it was exciting to see, because... not because there's risk of death, but you could tell the person they were loving it, and they were really having to work at it. And, I mean, during the race, there was one lap where Hamilton lost, 2 seconds in one lap? Because he changed 18 things on his fucking steering wheel in the last 6 corners. I'm sorry. Yeah. If a driver's having to change shit through fucking corners and losing that amount of time, then something's seriously fucking wrong.
Yeah, but this is what I mean. I mean... I just really, really wish Formula 1 cars now, yeah, we sort of say that it should have shifters on the steering wheel, because obviously they're going to go quicker. But if you had people using gear shifters, even if it were, you know what I mean, there's a more opportunity of somebody making a mistake. Going through a gear shifter, more potential for overtake for a potential mistake.
Yep.
And now I mean, the biggest mistake you can make is running about 20 centimetres wide and damaging a bit of your diffuser. And it's like, I don't know, it's just too
stupid.
There's no. I mean, I'm racing in these classic Lotuses, and they're fragile as fuck.
Are you racing or are you testing the headrests?
Against the ground.
In round two, I were testing the headrests. In round three, I came third, so I didn't do too bad last night. But yeah,
What happened to everyone else?
Yeah, they sort of like took each other out. But the main thing with these Lotuses that I love is the simplicity of them.
Yeah.
There's hardly any aero. There's a tiny front wing and a tiny rear wing. Big bloody engine, literally strapped to the back of the car. And yeah, I don't know. You can proper drive them through corners. They're like not a ton of grip, but they're powerful and they just look. Even though like they're that old, they still look kind of like a modern Formula 1 car. Got the big.
The thing is, they are a sexier looking car. I just want to give a shout out to new viewer. Came in and had a listen and a watch last week. Quick shout out. I don't know if I should mention his real name or not. He's a bit of a ledge. But if you do like, I'm going to mention this now. And I've no idea what these guys' comments will be. But if you do like a bit of Michael Jackson, check out his YouTube channel. So your own, welcome to listening in, saying hello on the chat. Feel free to give your thoughts on F1's race at the weekend. But I mean, you're right though, James. I mean, this is why I mentioned about with Melbourne, right? Is Melbourne a difficult track to overtake on, or is it just F1 cars are difficult to overtake? If you were in those old F1 classic cars with limited aeros and simplicity, it's all about the driving. Right, not the switching of fucking engine modes around Melbourne. It's a whole different fucking ball game.
Yeah, I mean, I were in a race last night. I was in third place, and I was behind the chap called AFC Gooner in P2.
Yeah,
and we weren't on the same pace as the guy in P1. The guy in P1 was like a full second quicker than everybody, but we were very, very similar on pace. But literally every single lap, it was like all I were able to do was like take like 0.2 of a second out of him every lap, and it was frustrating. But at the same time, I knew if I were pushing that hard, I knew he was pushing like a, you know what I mean. I knew that if he not sort of like bigging myself up, but I wouldn't have wanted me chasing me down. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I were pushing like mad.
I wouldn't want you chasing me down either.
I was really, really focused, and I was just thinking to myself, he must be really, really pushing to keep, keep this gap. And this is the thing with modern Formula 1 cars now. You just look at them and you just think, I mean, the guys at the back are clearly pushing because they've got a shit car. But the guys up at the front, you just think, it's bonkers, isn't it, how the easier job you've got in the cockpit, the more wins you get. And it's, I don't know, I think that's kind of, I think if you want to win and you want to be the best, you've got to be
you're breaking up, James. That's James gone.
Put some more money in the meter.
He was shouting too loud, his microphone couldn't handle it.
Well, I mean, why don't they have like a minimum weight limit of a driver, and then the driver can get as fat as he wants, or he can get as muscly as he wants, and you know what I mean? It's all down to skill of the driver. I
must admit, there is a few things, I mentioned it before, there's a few things that just don't quite make sense to me. Like with the fuel, right? They're allowed a maximum, well, not a maximum, they're allowed a minimum amount of fuel, I think it is, or whatever it is, however they've got it fucking set at the moment. And it doesn't promote the teams to use more fuel, right? And obviously this probably could for economical reasons and stuff. I'm sorry, right? If you put a minimum limit, which is more than the drivers need, then the teams are more tempted to go, well, you know what, the lighter our car is, the faster it goes, let's use a bit more fuel. The car will go a bit faster. Let's allow the driver to push his engine a bit more. And that again comes, I mean, I think If an airplane engine can do thousands and thousands and thousands and thousands of miles, right, then maybe that's why people are thinking an F1 engine should be able to do fucking 200,000 races. I'm sorry, it doesn't work like that, unfortunately. And the idea that 3 engines are going to last the whole season and give competitive racing, it isn't. Because to be honest, I'm not going to want to sit there watching somebody win by a fucking mile because they've got a 5-race fresher engine. That ain't fucking racing to me.
But not only that, right? What happens next race? We could get 10 laps from the end, and I'll turn it off, and the result might not change from the end because everyone's going to turn their engines down to save them.
Yeah.
What's the point in watching the last 10 laps?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I want to see a race to the finish line every race.
That's what I felt like with Hamilton. You could tell that he'd been told, just if
Back
you don't
it
think
off.
you can do it, back it off because there's no point. And I just saw great, brilliant. I'd have preferred to see him just keep going and going and going to see
he was track. Yeah, he was a second off him, right? At the point when he turned his engine down, he was still getting within DRS. And in 2 laps left, all it would take is Vettel to lock a brake, and Hamilton would have been there to catalyse.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Or push his engine too much.
Or push his engine too much, yeah. It could have been anything.
I mean, couple
But
of
it's like, if Mercedes think they've got a better engine than the Ferrari, right? What's better for Mercedes to go, right, we're going to push that Ferrari until it breaks.
Yeah.
Right? And if ours breaks first, so be it.
Yeah. It's a good point now. I mean, the 2 things I mentioned on that, I liked the fact that Red Bull seemed to give the decision to Daniel Ricciardo on what he wanted to do. They said to him, do you want to back off and attack him in a bit, or do you want to just keep going? He says, I don't want to let him breathe. And that's the right thing for the team to do. What do you as the driver want to do? I want to push him. I want to push him. Okay, let's go. We'll tell you if things get critical. Go get him. And the thing is, not only is that what the driver wants to hear, it's what the viewers want to hear. As soon as I heard Ricciardo, I thought that's going to be a radio snippet this weekend. I like that. So you've got Red Bull telling Ricciardo to push, but the thing as well, with Hamilton, he backed off a little bit when he lost that 2 seconds messing about on his wheel, and I thought, oh, it's gone. Within, 2 laps, that gap had disappeared again. So the car was more than capable of catching and attacking. And yes, okay, that it would have been difficult on the tyres. But I think you're right there, Steve. Mercedes should have said to Lewis, just go get him. Just keep pressuring him. Get him to make a mistake because he's not a better driver than you.
And that's what Formula 1 misses, unfortunately.
Yeah. Instead of, turn the engine down. Those extra points don't mean that much to us.
The thing is, right, a driver should be turning their engine down once they've got a 30-second lead and it's a sail to take the car home and they've got the teammate in second place. That's when you can afford to turn the engine down.
What do you think Ayrton Senna would make of being told to turn his engine down?
He wouldn't listen. The thing is, right, the one time he was told to watch his pace, just keep it going, blah blah blah. He crashed. Yeah, at Monaco. So in those days you had to put the car on the limit to make the car work for a start. Mm-hmm. These cars, you don't even know what the limit is with them because the limit seems to be like stepped back from what it's capable of doing.
I mean, one of the things that gets me as well is, they went on a lot about they don't want too much. They want viewers to be able to see basically what's happening with the cars. So with the DRS flap, you can see what it does and you can see the effect it's going to have and stuff like that. With the bigger, fatter tyres, you can visibly see that they're big and they're fat and the cars are a bit louder and stuff like that. And so visibly, this is all good for the viewers. But how many spectators at the side of the road can see how many times the driver's twiddling with his steering wheel? None.
No.
So,
well, I couldn't even see the apex of the corners. I couldn't even work out half the driver. Who's he?
Should we talk about the halo camera angles? Oh my God, we're already pent up. We could end up smashing holes in walls if we talk about that.
Who set them up? Why didn't they just Why didn't they just get the GoPro camera and put it on
the front,
the halo so you can see the halo?
Right. Well, you may have missed this point, James. Right. The halo has a dedicated hole in the middle at the top for a camera mount, for a camera to go inside it, and it's there. But all the teams have covered it over with the carbon fibre because they deemed it not to use it, because all you'll see is track in front of the car. You won't be able to see the car. So as a spectator watching the screen, you won't know whose car it is you're on board with unless a caption comes up on the screen. So for commentators and for viewers, it could be a little bit
I'd rather see
difficult
that
to see.
than just a fucking halo, though.
But the reason why they put them behind the driver is because you want to see what the driver what input the driver's doing onto the steering wheel. I don't mean pressing buttons. I want about turning left and right and seeing the driver inside the car as well as what's going on ahead of you. But that's the problem. You can't see what's going on ahead of the car.
Mm-hmm.
You can't have your cake and eat it. You can't say, right, I tell you what, we want to see what the driver's doing, but let's just fucking surround him in carbon fibre and let's just try and see him. What you can. You either have one thing. You either say, right, what do we really want? Do we want to protect the drivers? Or do we want the fans to see the drivers working away? You can't have both.
No. I mean, the thing is, right, the halo's here. It's going to be here for a while, right? It's something we're going to have to deal with. And we could argue about it all day long. Yes, it looks shit. If it saves a life, fair enough. But don't position the camera somewhere that as a viewer, you can't see the fucking racetrack. It's ridiculous.
It is. It's just bonkers.
But
this is where, when we're sat there watching it, we're just thinking to ourselves,
who's made that decision?
Who's made the decisions?
Who's sat there and gone, that looks really good?
If we'd have been employed for £10 an hour, right, to work for Formula 1, and Mr. Twat walks in and goes, I've had a great idea about the camera angles. We turn to him and go, well, let's have a look and see what it looks like. And then we'd have gone straight away, that looks shit.
Yeah, it looks
Get
shit.
it off.
Fuck off. And if a team comes back with, that's going to affect our aerodynamics if you put the camera... I don't give a fuck. I don't give a fuck.
Exactly.
Let's put this into context, right? Dave, you and I, and James actually have run racing leagues and have had to control the broadcaster. In James's situation now, he edits footage. All right. If you were broadcasting an event and one of the camera options was poor as that, how much airtime would you give it compared to another camera angle?
None at all.
So why is Formula One doing it?
Yeah, I'll tell you why.
Fucking idiots.
Not just that, because they've now got a bit of sponsors on it, so they need to be fuck off. So, I'm sorry, piss off. It would get zero airtime. Now, to be fair, I mentioned I was doing commentary in a race yesterday, right? Now, in the cars that we use, I don't know the reasoning for it, but we do have the choice of, as I've mentioned before, having the halo on the car or not. 99.99999% of the drivers don't bother with it. One person has decided, you know what, we're going to use it. Now, the camera angles that we had, it still looks shit, but it doesn't block the view, right? So for anyone that wanted to know what it looked like, and to be honest, it wasn't on camera very often, but there was a point where somebody did ask for it to be shown so they could see what it was like. The camera angles shown, you could still see what was happening, because you had the T-cam view like was on the Williams, and that was about it, or you could move the camera in front. But even from Mercedes, if I was at Mercedes and the camera angle was where the camera on the side was where it was, I'd be saying, hang on a minute guys, we don't want to be showing that camera, it doesn't look very good. Now, for example, I can't stand Craig Slater from Sky, right? He's just one of those people, it's like fucking nails down a chalkboard, right? However, Ted did mention that he had a brilliant idea, and that was that when it snowed in Spain in the practice sessions, Craig Slater said, I can't believe that none of the teams have gone out for a decent photo opportunity. And you know what? He's absolutely fucking right. It's not often you get snow and F1 cars together, and that would have been a perfect opportunity for a team to go, you know what, we're not going to learn anything, but let's go and make something beautiful.
Yeah.
And that's what the sponsors pay for.
Dangerous.
It is dangerous. But there wasn't any snow on the track either. The snow was next to the track. So it's just that... It's almost like the teams have gone, right, okay, we've got to do certain things with our engines and look after that, but we've got to be very active on social media because that's where the world is now. But getting a beautiful picture or doing something just for the fun of it or the love of it, it doesn't really matter. It doesn't matter where the cameras are.
Could you just imagine, though, if it was Kimi Raikkonen in a Ferrari going out in the snow, you know, and you could have had the pictures of the Iceman text to the snow.
Yeah.
You know, the opportunities that Ferrari could have, you know, the media opportunities that they could have come from that.
Yeah, be massive. Or you could have had something like, I don't know, someone who's quick like Verstappen or Hamilton, and saying it may have been snowing anywhere, but he's so hot, the trackers clear as day. You know, it's melting ice, anything, all that kind of shit could have happened. Now, on the flip side, I mean, this is what I can't quite get with Formula 1 at the moment, right? The onboard camera angles have been absolutely fucking disgraceful, but then on the flip side, something brilliant that they've done is finally allowed Martin Brundle to take a camera with him when he goes walking the track. So all those times last season in practice 2, when he'd say, I'm stood at this corner and this is what I'm seeing, now he can take a camera with him. And
for all we know, it could have been in a hotel room watching it on telly.
It could have been, but I was so pleased. I mean, this is, like I say, it's the crazy thing about it. I'm so irate about the onboard cameras, but then I'm so amazed and pleased that they've allowed Brundle to take a camera, because.
We were speaking last week about me and Steve walking the track.
Yeah.
Me finding the best toilets and Steve finding the best burger buns.
Mm-hmm.
Imagine that with cameras.
Yeah.
We'd actually be able to show you evidence of what we were finding.
Well, this
I'm
is
down here at turn 4 having a shit and it's going.
Fucking hell, could you imagine the echo Steve would make in a Portaloo? But instantly it made me think, I mean, this is how my mind worked with that, right? It was, oh, this is going to be brilliant. I'm jumping forward to different circuits where I think, okay, at Japan, the amount of times he's said he's gone and stood sort of where the second Degner is, and there's like a bit of a hill and a little bit of forested area where there's snakes and spiders and it's really scary. He says, but in like a short area of ground, you can be at the Degners or you can be at the 130R. And there's different tracks that are like that, where he hopefully will say, you know, all those years I've been telling you about the big snakes and the spiders and stuff like that, well, this is the bit I'm on about. So us viewers at home will be thinking, well, it's difficult to picture the kind of stuff he's going on about, but now we'll be able to show us, finally. But not just that.
I wonder if he'll find any squirrels at Monza.
He might do. But not only that, it gives much more of an insight into what he's looking at. I mean, I know when we went to Silverstone a few years ago and we were sat by turns 1 and 2, and as I'm watching the cars go through the corners, you can visibly see the slight differences the way the rear ends of the cars are handling for the drivers. And our little brother was there at the time, and every now and again I'd say, he's going to lose it a bit through this corner. He's like, how do you know? I was like, well, because the last time he come round he had a little bit of a twitch, and he said, well, what are you looking at? I said, well, just look at the back of the car as he goes round the corner, and every car that goes back past, do the same thing, look at the same thing, and you'll see the different characteristics of it. But it's one of those things that as a general viewer, if you're just looking at a car going past, you won't be looking at those sort of smaller details. But that's what Brundle does. So while he's there, he's looking at those little characteristics, the sounds of the cars, and being able to show it as well. Because what would be good is if he can stand there and go, right, the Mercedes is coming now. I'd said he's doing this through the corner, you'll be able to see it, and just behind him is an Alfa Romeo. So let's compare the two, and that'll be really good to see.
Yeah, well, I mean, I'm always sort of like, when I'm doing my commentary for me racing league, I'm trying to like explain what's going on with like each like driver's driving style and stuff like that, and I'll comment on like what they're doing, and I think this is where I'm kind of a bit like annoyed with current commentators on F1. There's only Brundle who really kind of understands the actual the way cars work.
Yeah.
And I like David Croft, but he really doesn't have a clue what when it comes to anything related to the car. He'll just say what he thinks rather than actually properly staring at the car and working out, is it a puncture, is it a suspension failure? And it's just a bit too...
Yeah, that's though because he's a commentator, and it's different when you're a racing driver and you instantly see something that's not quite right on the car. Like Brundle said, oh, it looked like his suspension wasn't quite right.
Yeah.
Because he noticed the wheel was, straight away he noticed the wheel's not quite at the right angle. In fact, what it was, the wheel wasn't on properly. Whereas Crofty just sees car going slow and he has to just assume something's wrong with it, but doesn't spot it straight away.
Yeah.
But shouldn't it be that... I mean, the best two commentators ever were Walker and Hunt.
I thought he was going to say me for a second
Walker,
then.
I was going to say Murray Walker knew fuck all, but he still commentated well.
I mean, the thing is as well though, I mean, something that I know I tried to do, and I still kind of do in commentary at the moment, and I think Crofty sort of does it as well. Brundle a little bit, but it also sort of ties into for example, the timing tower, the new timing tower in F1. It's much more active than it ever has been, but I think it's done with a particular thought in mind, and that is every show needs to be put on, yes, with experience, but as if you are showing it to somebody for the first time.
Yeah.
So I think from Crofty's point of view, perhaps, I think he knows a hell of a lot more than he makes out, but it's because he's making sure that he does his job, which is to put on a show that people who've never seen it before could come and watch and understand. He might go, oh, there's a car going slow, I wonder if it's this or this or this, and Brundle's going, no, he's only got three wheels on his car, you knobhead. But it's it's the difference of approach, like Steve said, from the commentator to the pundit.
But it's like when me and you used to commentate, Dave. I would know an answer to a question that I'm going to ask you, but I would ask you so that you could give the answer to the audience, not to give me the answer, but I would still ask you the question.
Yeah.
You know, like, why do you think he's going so slow at the moment? I might know why.
Because he's shit.
Yeah. Because he just dive bombed somebody at a hairpin at Japan.
I wasn't thinking that, but yeah. But yeah, okay, we've gone on a little bit. We've gone on a bit of a rant now. I'm going to try and get back to a little bit of my race notes. Actually, I did note that other than on the opening lap, the first real overtake I remember seeing was on lap 5 by Daniel Ricciardo. I mean, overtaking was very disappointing. What I was surprised at though was Bottas. Okay, he had a big crash in qualifying, but he started on the ultra soft tyre. Now, I'm guessing that's just because he got into the top 10, he had to start the race on the ultra soft tyre.
No, he didn't, because he didn't set a lap, did he?
Didn't set a lap time. No, he set a lap in quali 2 on the ultra soft.
You don't have to set a lap time in quali 3, but you'd still have to start the race on your quali 2 tyre.
Yeah.
Right.
But I thought, or maybe I'm wrong, but I was under the impression that once you got a penalty and you were back outside the top 10, you were free to do what you want tyre-wise. Is that not right?
Well, I thought that was the case as well.
But he was still inside the top 10, wasn't he? Because he crashed in a Q3, didn't he?
He was still inside the top. He was in Q3, but he crashed in Q3. So at best, his position was going to be 10th and would have to start on the qualifying, the Q2 tyre. But his actual starting position was 15th, I think,
15th.
because he had to change the gearbox.
Yeah.
So his starting position was 15th, so that's where sort of I'm asking the question, Steve's asking the question, he should have had a free choice of tyre. Now, if he had a free choice of tyre, they chose to go with the ultra soft.
Maybe their thought was that would give him the best chance of overtaking, because it's got the most grip. At the start, obviously, that didn't work. But I was expecting him to start from the pit lane and go on a harder tyre to the end. Not to the end of the race, but get on the harder tyre, go as long as you can. And if that had been the case, he would have been able to do similar to what Vettel did.
Yeah.
And he would have put himself in more of a safety car window. Is that James on the loo?
No, sorry, it's Kettle.
All right. Yeah, he would have been able to put himself in more of this, because obviously the longer you're on the circuit before you have to pit stop, the more you were in a safety car window for. The earlier you're going to have to pit stop, the shorter your window for that safety car. So for me, for Bottas, he would have been better off coming out of the pit lane at the start of the race on the hardest tyre that he could have used.
Yeah, potentially. I mean, by lap 9, he'd only done 2 overtakes, or 2 real overtakes that I could see. On lap 10, Verstappen spun. My question then was, starting on the super soft a bad idea? Both the Red Bulls did it.
The weather, the temperature was a lot higher than they were expecting, and I think it was just out of the working range for that tyre. Potentially, it could have worked well for them, and I don't think it did. But it surprised me that they couldn't get past Alonso
At the end, yeah.
But to me, the McLaren isn't up to the level of the Red Bull. And okay, you could say that the McLaren did a good job, or Alonso did a good job to keep them behind, but I don't know. I just expected them to do so much more at Red Bull.
Alonso were another one who gained under VSC, wasn't he?
Yes, he did. He gained 2 places.
Because they were behind Hulkenberg and...
Yeah.
Verstappen.
He was behind both Hulkenberg and Verstappen. He did gain 2 places under the safety car, which, I mean, the sort of argument that I put forward earlier about Vettel gaining under VSC, I wouldn't say I'm an Alonso fan, and I know last week I said I want to see McLaren fail and Toro Rosso succeed. I do still want to see McLaren succeed. They should be up at the top, and I want to see if Alonso's still got what it takes. So I was pleased to see them up there, but at the same time I think it's wrong that he gained in the way that he did through the VSC. I also found it funny. I mean, this is kind of common sense, which is you don't often see. Verstappen, rightly or wrongly, as I mentioned, on the pit exit when Alonso's coming out, takes the position. Right, he does everything he can to try and take the position. Now it turns out that he shouldn't have done that. He needed to give the position back. Now the FIA could have gone penalty, overtaking under the VSC. Right? They could have done that. It would have been well within their rights to do that. But obviously what they did instead was they said, well, look, we're still under VSC. All you got to do is switch the cars around. There's common sense for you. Great stuff.
No one told Alonso that.
I was going to say, no one seemed to tell Alonso. So you got Verstappen trying to stick his hand through the fucking halo, going, "Come on!" Looking like a camp racing driver, looked like Alan Carr driving an F1 car. It's like, "Come on, come through!" And Alonso slowing down, thinking, "Hang on a minute," and actually radioed the team twice, saying, "He's slowing down. I think he's trying to let me through, but I don't want to go." And I'm not surprised Alonso slowed down, because the last thing he wants to do is go, "Oh, he's letting me have the place," and then the FIA turn around and go, "Oh, that's an illegal overtake, that is. Fucking penalty for you."
Yeah, but do you know, with Verstappen waving his arm out the window, or fingers out of the halo, at the start of the race, I thought about something to do with that. If a car stalls on the grid, or has a mechanical problem and can't get away, what does the driver do?
Puts his hands straight up.
Puts his hands up in the air and waves them, like X kind of on and off kind of thing to say, look, I've got a problem. And then the marshals then spot that, wave yellow flag. When they were lined up on the grid, I'm thinking, God, if one of them drivers sticks his arms up in the air, you're not going to see them.
True, but each car does have a marshal next to them at the start. So there's a marshal sort of sat there looking at the driver, and I would guess, okay, there's it's more in the olden days they do the big crossing wave of the arms, but I think now they'd just give a signal to that marshal who'd flip the yellow flag straight away. So not everybody needs to see it.
In the olden days, you would have a chap run out to the back of the car while starting lights are on. Get run over as he's trying to start the engine motor.
Yeah, you're not wrong there.
And then get hit up the rear. I remember seeing that.
Okay, moving on to my notes where I've got lap 12 radio to Kimi Räikkönen. I mean, I was actually impressed with how Kimberly. How Kimi went about the whole weekend until I don't know what it is. I just always see it as soon as Kimi Räikkönen pitted. I thought, okay, they've done the right thing there, but then straight away I'm thinking, okay, so how are Ferrari going to make this work for Vettel? And that's just the way that it's been since those two have been teammates. They couldn't.
Yeah, it reminded me straight away. As soon as he pitted, I thought Monaco.
Yeah. But on lap 12, radio to Kimi was time to close the gap, and at that point I thought, okay, he's been saving the engine, been saving fuel, and now he's going to go for it. Good, I want to see this. So that was lap 12. He was 2 seconds behind. By lap 16, he was 3 seconds behind.
Yeah. I was just thinking, would there have been just as much uproar about Vettel coming out ahead of Raikkonen and behind Hamilton, rather than just the fact that he'd come out and took the lead?
Oh, I think there'd still be. I mean, I'd still be pissed with it because I'd see it as Ferrari have screwed Raikkonen then.
But not necessarily that the safety car situation has screwed Raikkonen.
No, it'd still be part of the VSC has screwed him, but it'd also be Ferrari as well. Until I've seen data. So the thing that would concern me, right? Because I wouldn't necessarily say this has happened before, but you take Monaco. They could have told Monaco, Kimi Räikkönen, in Monaco, you need to push more. You need to be hitting this lap time for Vettel to stay behind you, right? They didn't fucking tell him that, did they? So they're withholding information. So if they're telling Kimi Räikkönen, right, okay, you're fine, you're safe, the positions aren't going to change, you can back off a little bit, don't worry, and then Vettel comes out in front, and that's kind of happened before as well, because we've heard Räikkönen go, hang on a minute, how has that happened? Then, yeah, until I'd seen that data that says no, Räikkönen was given everything possible, Vettel was just better, then yeah, I'd always see it as Ferrari is screwing him, I reckon.
If I was Raikkonen, I think I'd have to be putting my foot to the floor every single lap and pushing every single lap until Vettel's done his pit stop, because it looks like that, you know, if they are giving the drivers a delta to work to, it's almost as if they're giving Kimi a different delta than they are Vettel.
Yeah.
Anyway, what was your point?
I can't remember. I was just mentioning, my point was that they told Kimi Räikkönen to close the gap, and within 4 laps the gap just got bigger, which kind of shows that Mercedes had more than enough in the bag, and unfortunately either Kimi Räikkönen didn't or his car didn't. Either one of the two, the Ferrari weren't good enough.
No, because I think as soon as he started putting his foot down, Hamilton had enough to put his foot down as well.
Yep.
He was looking comfortable at that point.
Yep. Lap 15, Gasly, engine, Honda, thoughts?
What lap did James say?
I'll tell you in a bit when I do the predictions.
You said halfway, didn't you? So you said lap 45, I said 10 laps from end.
I'm closest then. Yeah, I kind of, when I saw it and I saw like the little plumes coming out of the rear end. I was like, straight away, I was like, that looks like engine. If that's anything else, I'd be surprised.
Yeah.
And I'm thinking, then it twigged. Oh my God, it's the Honda. And I felt bad for Honda in a way. But then I thought, McLaren have done the right thing so far.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that's what I'm going to end up judging it on all the way through the season. Have McLaren done the right thing in leaving the Hondas behind?
Yeah.
Well, yeah. For Brendan Hartley now, it was Brendan, wasn't it?
It was Pierre Gasly. It was Gasly's engine that went.
Gasly's got 2 engines that season.
Yeah.
But it's like when you've got to try and make 3 engines last the whole season and they're an engine down already. Yeah. It's McLaren all over again, isn't it?
Yeah.
For saying that they did the most laps in practice in the pre-season tests and without any issues, and then come to race day. I mean, is it the fact that, okay, they did loads of laps in practice, but they weren't running very fast laps for majority of them? Or is it the fact that when it's come to race day, with the temperatures that they're running, and for whatever reasons, it's the same Honda?
Well, I think most people would have had the same thought of, well, McLaren did the right thing. And I mean, there's a couple of things you can look at it. Did McLaren do the right thing? Both of their cars finished. Their engine hasn't blown. And not only that, both of them ended up in... How many times did McLaren drivers end up in the points last season? And how many times did both of them end in the points last season?
They scored more points in that race than they did in any other races while they were with Honda.
There you go.
They outscored any other race.
We could play on that a lot more, but yeah.
I'll just very quickly point something out.
Go on.
And it's not to do with Honda engines. Something I noticed pretty much quite early on, before the race had even started. No lollipops on the grid. No grid girls, no lollipops. Nothing denoting where the cars were.
See, I didn't see any of that, so that surprises me.
Yeah, there was basically the rope around where the car is and the car in the pit crew, and there was no person in front of the car. You know, like they said they were going to have grid boys and girls. All you saw was when they were doing the national anthem, there's like ball boys in front of the like little mascots, maybe girls as well, but little mascots in front of the drivers when they were doing the national anthem. That was it.
Well, I mean, I did question how right or wrong it would be to have kids on the grid by the cars. So I could understand that the grid kids were only sort of there for the national anthem bit, but I'm not being daft, right? But as a spectator, when there's that melee on the grid, I think you need that board there that says this car here is this guy.
Yeah, I mean, if you've paid a couple of thousands of pounds as some VIPs obviously get it gifted, but some people will pay money to be on that grid. You know, you want to know where Lewis Hamilton is. You want to know where Kimi Räikkönen is. You want to know how to avoid K-Mac. You
need to know where the McLaren is, because they used to be up at the front and then they were down at the back, but now we just don't know. But that's
something else very quickly. Right, you won't have seen this either, Dave. And the races are now starting 10 minutes later.
Yep.
All right, 10 past the hour. They're doing the national anthem pretty much on the hour, right? Now, if you're on the front row of the grid, you've got 30-second walk to your car.
Yeah.
If you're at the back of the grid, it's going to take you that 10 minutes to get to the back of the grid.
Maybe,
now,
yeah.
if you've got to get through Monaco grid, it's going to take you longer than 10 minutes to get to the back.
That is true. It could do. It's an interesting point you make, because the national anthems used to be about 15 minutes before, didn't they?
It was literally they did the national anthem and then they were trying to start clear the grid, and it did seem, because Martin Brundle was actually still doing his grid walk after the national anthem,
right,
which normally they don't do. because with Sky, what would happen in the past is they do the national anthem and they go to an ad.
Yeah.
They come back and the drivers are in the cars ready to do the formation lap.
Right.
Well, they stuck with it. Basically, the last ad was about 5 to 6 or something like that in the morning.
Yeah.
So they did the last ad, come back, then it's Martin's grid walk, which involved the national anthem. After the national anthem, it's back to Martin's grid walk again. And they actually managed to speak to a couple of the drivers coming away from the national anthem. But I'm thinking, you don't want to be talking to him. He's got to get to the back of the grid.
That's true.
So
did they do anything like presenting the drivers like they did in America last year?
No, they didn't.
Really?
Nope. There was none of that. It was literally the rope at the front. Drivers get there by a certain time, and to be fair, Martin Brundle, he started off on the opposite side of that rope because he was where they had the trophy for the race, and then the championship and the drivers' championship, and the constructors' championship trophies. So he basically where the safety car is before the start. So he starts off there. And then he walks around to where Lewis Hamilton's car is, where the Ferrari is, and had a quick word with a couple of people. But then it was the national anthem. And then after the national anthem, he had another couple of minutes, and then he had to be off the grid. He had to then I mean, some circuits, he's going to have a long walk to get to the commentary box.
Yeah, that is true. You know, there's going to be a news story somewhere at some point. Martin Brundle crashes his Segway. Misses the race. Okay, what did you think about Carlos Sainz's comment, by the way? It made me think of Mark Webber, which says, I'm feeling sick, my stomach, my water's making me nauseous.
I thought at first I thought I'd misheard him, and I thought, he's making up an excuse why he's not quick enough. But then I heard the commentators talking about it a bit more, and if he's got an energy drink sponsor, that won't go down well.
It won't. I mean, I actually thought fucking hell, is he being poisoned? Now, I did watch Ted's Notebook, and for anyone that doesn't watch British Formula 1, or Formula 1 from the British broadcasters, Ted Kravitz's notebooks he does after qualifying on practice sessions, and the race sessions are very interesting. That's how, like, I know, for example, the Toro Rosso Honda of Gasly stopping, Ted was able to confirm that Toro Rosso and Honda have said yes, it was a Honda engine failure. But he also gave a bit of information about that Carlos Sainz message, and I can kind of relate to it a little bit. He said what it was, there was a problem with the drinks bottle, in the fluid was bubbling up through the tube into his mouth. Right, so it was doing it on its own, and it's not supposed to. And he's actually someone that doesn't like to drink a lot when he's racing, because the more fuel he has, he doesn't want to be drinking fucking fuel. The more liquid he drinks, the fuller his stomach is, and when he's being thrown around the corners in the car, if you imagine being in a car going over
Probably
hills, well, you know when your stomach goes
travel sickness,
a little bit like that, but it's created by the fluid in the stomach. It's something he's had before, so it was a problem with the drinks bottle that he couldn't stop for whatever reason, but it could cause him to be sick in future races if they don't solve it. But to be fair, I mean, I know James is a massive Hulkenberg fan. I thought Renault weren't actually doing too bad, to be honest.
Yeah, I thought they were doing all right until Raikkonen came out of the pit in front of them, and I was like, "Fucking hell, they're miles in front." I didn't think they were. I didn't realise how far in front the leaders were. And then when Raikkonen pitted from P2 and came out in P3, I was like, "What?" Yeah. I couldn't believe how far in front they were. Mm-hmm. So I just sort of thought, Yeah, I mean, Hulkenberg were doing weren't he in front of Verstappen for
it was Magnussen, Verstappen, Grosjean, I think. He was ahead of Alonso, wasn't he, for quite some time?
Yeah.
And Sainz was ahead of somebody as well, but then he went through the gravel, made a bit of a... Or was that Hulkenberg that locked up? I can't remember now.
No, it was
Sainz, yes, on lap 22. Made a mistake and went through the gravel. But yeah, I mean, I think for Renault... I don't think it was that bad a race. Okay, Red Bull perhaps expected more. For McLaren, I think it's phenomenal. It's almost as good as a win for them. I mean, one of their cars beat one of the Red Bulls. Can't really ask much more than that. And the cars ahead of them, there was one Renault engined cars, and then it was Ferrari, like official Ferrari and Mercs. It wasn't like there was the sister teams or the B teams or anything like that.
When you say official Ferraris, what's an unofficial Ferrari?
Alfa Romeo, Haas, either of those, take your pick. But yeah, so I think for Renault, not bad. Let's see, Verstappen after the safety car, I think he was pissed, you know, about having to let Alonso back through as well, because he knew how much he'd gained. But, I mean, Verstappen was trying. It'll be interesting to see how he gets on throughout the rest of the season, but I don't know, I think it just boils back to Melbourne is just a circuit I don't think they should start the season on. Give us somewhere there's a bit of action.
But I think Melbourne would be good if they just took away the front wings.
Yeah. And the rear wings.
Yeah, just give them a ton of power, but no aero.
Yeah.
I'd love to see that.
Yeah.
If you think about it, right? If you get rid of that front wing, the speed. I mean, you see it when they've lost the front wing and they've got to bring the car back to the pit lane. You know, the speed that they have to take corners at is so much slower that it makes the braking zones so much longer.
Yeah.
Just that alone is going to create overtaking opportunities.
Yeah. Also, did you see that there were 2 new drivers on the grid in the race? That's got us stumped. Yeah, there was 2 new drivers. I don't know at what point they joined the race, but one of them was called Last Name, and the other one was called Last Name.
Them graphics are class, aren't they? They do a good job at FOM, don't they?
Well, I did say last week, right, that I hope the graphics work for the first race, because quite often they don't, and that's just simply the timing tower. Now, there's a few things I want to pick up on the timing tower. In qualifying, I kind of liked what the timing tower did. It highlighted every now and again the few drivers that were in the knockout group, the few drivers that were in danger. I did find it a little frustrating in the race, though, that every now and again, like if there was 2 cars kind of close together, the timing tower would expand and it'd show a picture of the driver and the team is in and stuff like that. But then I thought, no, that's just their way of like presenting to someone that's never seen it before. So from that perspective, I was like, okay, I don't necessarily like it, but I can understand it, and it's actually not a bad touch. But I think overall the visual of the graphics, I don't know if I particularly liked it, especially when every dry tyre has an S inside its icon.
Well,
I'm guessing you didn't notice that then.
I did, but what I noticed more as well, as long with that, is on the timing tower, majority of the time, it's got the position they're in. Then you got like a little colour bar, so it's red for Ferrari, silver for Mercedes, and so on. The driver's name, yeah, and then the car symbol,
yeah,
like Ferrari symbol or Mercedes symbol. I'm sorry, but I don't think that's necessary. That's what the colour's for.
Yeah, either get rid of the colour or get rid of the logo.
Now, okay, you could have both, but when the logo wasn't there, that's when it was giving you other information that I found more relevant, like what tyres they're on, the distance between the drivers and that sort of stuff. So I don't know, I just thought that a lot of the time I was wondering what's the gap or what tyres is he on, and yet I'm getting a symbol to tell me that Kimi Raikkonen's in a red Ferrari. Well, of course the Ferrari's red.
Well, this is the thing, for you know, so you don't need to know. You know that bit of red tells you he's in a Ferrari. For someone that's never seen it before, would have no idea what the red is for. But
watch the program from the start when it tells you Kimi Raikkonen is driving a fucking Ferrari and it's red.
I can't disagree with you on that one, to be honest. It'd be a little bit like watching Man United play Leeds United, and the commentator constantly tell you, Man United are the team in red, Leeds are the team in white.
Well, if United is the team in red, of course. Hang on, if United is the team in red. If Man United is the team in red, of course the other team's in the other colour.
Exactly. But yeah, but the graphic with the tyre graphic, though, it pissed me off a bit. We've been ranting a bit. It pissed me off, right? Because this is the thing. I'm looking at it thinking, okay, they're presenting to new people. I can get that. I can grasp that. I'm on board with you. I'm happy that, to be honest, other than last name, your graphics seem to be working. Apart from when the timing beam broke on the start-finish straight. And
it tells you that someone's going down the straight at 70 kilometres an hour.
Yeah, and their lap's taken 2 minutes. But the tyre graphic for me is there's something not right. When your commentator's sat there going, I know it's telling you that it's a soft tyre, but it's actually got a purple ring. It is the ultra soft tyre. I'm sat there thinking, I don't think the commentator's clocked on yet that it's a W for wet, an I for inter, and an S for slick. It's not an S for soft, it's an S for slick, because looking at the graphics of all of their tyres, it's S for for hard, S for medium, it's S for slick. But that for me is fucking wrong. You should have a U for ultras.
For hard.
For hard, yeah. An M for mother. But yeah.
And V for very hard.
And a P for punctured. But yeah, anyway.
But of course, though, if they're not on a green tyre or a blue tyre that's inter or wet, of course it's going to be a slick.
Yeah, true. But anyway.
Unless it's the super soft. And then I think that's blue, isn't it? Or is it purple?
No, the blue.
No, the hyper soft. I'm sure one of the colours of tyre, or is it the hyper hard or whatever it is, the super hard?
the hyper hard. I think you're making things up now, Steve.
No, but no, one of the compounds of tyre this year is blue. Hyper
hard is the name of that teddy bear you were in bed with earlier. I'm going through all of my pictures on my phone. I did have a picture of all of the tyres, and knowing me, I've probably deleted it, but I am going to scroll through. The last thing I've got from my notes was Bottas. I think after his crash, I'm not surprised he was a little bit cautious right throughout the race. I was surprised he didn't attack more late on. However, I did notice he backed off at one point by about 5 seconds. There was a little train of cars in front of him, and he backed off about 5 seconds, right, and then closed that gap up within like 2 laps. And I think
he was changing his engine modes on his steering wheel.
I actually think it was a case of, look, I can't get past these guys, I'm going to back off and show you what kind of lap times I am capable of doing. Because for him, he's in a make or break year. And if he can't do it by overtaking on a track where no one can overtake, then he can at least show what pace he's capable of. Okay, your tyres, Steve. You got super hard, which is orange, hard, which is blue, medium, which is white,
there you go.
Soft, which is yellow, super soft, which is red, ultra soft, which is purple or pink, and then the hyper soft, which kind of looks like the same colour as the Force India.
Why don't they use the colours of the rainbow, right? So that the one at the top, like red, is the hardest, and then we all know then the order of the rainbow: red and yellow and pink and green, and then you know what colour the tyre on, what level of hardness it is.
Not if you're colour blind.
Yeah, but that's what the commentators are there for.
Yeah, but how does a commentator say that green tyre over there to a colourblind person?
There's another point. A colourblind person watching it, it's got an S. It's a soft.
Okay. Right, well, I've got through all of my race notes that I made. Actually, no, I've got one more, but I'm going to see what else you guys have got from the race.
I'm done. We've covered my
only other
note.
thing that I enjoyed were Alonso when they were taking piss out of his engineer. Yeah, I like that bit.
It's a long race. You need to go for some chickens.
That's it. You know what I'd have done? I'd have really pissed Alonso off because he went, you need to keep the energy high because it sounds like you're you're not. I'd have just gone, fucking get on with it.
I think I'd have probably gone, you know what, I'll have a Red Bull then. Oh.
I'd have gone like, yeah, let me do my job, you do yours. Get your foot down and go a bit quicker, yeah?
I wish somebody had come over the radio and told him that the Honda engine had blown.
Oh.
That would have been quality.
They probably did. They probably did. They probably couldn't decipher the amount of laughing he was doing. But, I mean, well, he probably wouldn't have had to say anything, would he?
GP2 engine.
Okay, you got anything else, James? Any comments you think of from the race? That'd be a no then.
I just fucking hate these cars.
Okay, I've got one. There was one more thing that I hated. Right, I wasn't really listening to this point, so I missed the start of it. But I thought Formula One might do some new stuff like before the race or sort of at the end of the race. What I wasn't expecting was probably what sounded like drunken rendition of Waltzing Matilda on the trumpets. So instead of grid girls, we've got drunk Australian trumpeteers trying to play Waltzing Matilda and sound like they're drowning while they're doing it.
Well, you wouldn't have heard what happened before the race, which was a drunken bagpipist, whatever you call them.
Oh,
God. James, describe to Dave what the guy doing the bagpipes sounded like.
Well, I don't know, but I was sort of like half awake, making a cup of tea, and when I heard the bagpipes going, I was like, "Oh, that'd be a good race round Edinburgh." But then I didn't actually, like when you're like half awake. I wasn't really like paying much attention, so I can't really say I've got a massive opinion on it. Other than I found the bagpipes to be a bit like, what have they got to do with Australia?
Yeah, and I don't know whether it's just bagpipes in general, but they just annoy me.
Yeah, they annoy me. I went up to Edinburgh with Vicky when we first started going out. And at first, when you get up there and you're walking past shops and there's bagpipes going, you're like, oh god, I feel like I'm in a different place. Like, oh, it's great. By second or third day, whenever I walked past a novelty shop and they had bagpipes playing, I thought, God, I felt so sorry for staff members. Imagine going to work listening to fucking bagpipes every day in these novelty shops.
Well, that's why they're drunk all the time.
That's why they're drunk and violent.
Get me a battered Mars bar.
I thought you were going to say, get me a battery.
That's why that Sky commentator's just a knobhead. Yeah. No offence to all Scottish people, but yeah. I fucking hate him.
What was I going to say? Yeah, I think the best bagpipes are the ones that are playing proper music. For example, I'm sure you've seen the video of the guy. Oh right. There's a video on YouTube of the guy playing Thunderstruck with flames coming out. To be fair, that sounds fucking amazing on the bagpipes. I remember telling you about my old boss that used to play in a Scottish bagpipe band. The music they did was fucking brilliant. But this Waltzing Matilda on the trumpets, I honestly thought to myself, fucking hell, I think they've been on the champagne already. But there we go. Right, okay, I reckon it's time we have a look at how well we did on our predictions. So I'm going to pop it. I will admit, my graphics on the predictions aren't too great. I had about an hour and a half to do them today, and God knows why. It took me an hour, and what I came up with was pretty shit. I didn't like it. Maybe I was just laughing too much at the picture of Steve getting fucked by a teddy bear. I'll send it to you guys as well. Okay, so Steve's on the top row, and then James's, and then mine. And then we've got the points that we've scored at the end, and you can see that we do have a leader after round one. So Steve predicted that Hamilton would get pole, Ricciardo for James, and Vettel for me, so that's where Steve's got his point. The rest of it, we were all terribly fucking wrong. So yeah, Winner, Steve said it'd be Hamilton. It wasn't. James said it would be Verstappen. It really wasn't. I said it'd be Ricciardo. It definitely wasn't. To be fair, I said that before he'd been given his penalty, which I thought was a bit harsh. And the same for James picking him for pole. Podium. Steve was close with Hamilton, Vettel, Ricciardo. It was Hamilton and Vettel in the other order, and Ricciardo nearly did it but didn't, so no points for Steve there. James said it'd be Verstappen, Kimi, and oh fucking hell, Ricciardon, whoever he is.
Who's Ricciardo?
Ricciardon. We know that's going to end up being a driver in one of our parodies at some point.
I thought that was the bear that were after Steve.
Yeah, Ricciardon. I said it'd be Ricciardo, Verstappen and Gasly as a gamble. Fucking typical. I picked the one person whose engine did blow. Okay, first to crash, Steve said it'd be Lance Stroll. James said it'd be Ericsson into Magnussen, and I said it'd be Vettel into Hamilton, and nobody actually did crash in the race. Let's see, as for the Honda blowing up, Steve said it'd be lap 48. James said it'd be on the last lap, and I said that it won't blow. So none of us are even close with that, because
I was closest.
Closest, but you also said within 10, and you weren't within 10. You were still 33 away. So that's not within 10, is it? So onto the shocks then. Steve said that no Honda blowing up would be a shock, and he's right.
I was half right.
You're half right. James said Alpha beating Vettel. That was nowhere near happening. And I said Toro Rosso getting a podium, and that also was nowhere near happening either. So yeah, an absolutely shocking showing of predictions. Do you want to explain yourselves, guys, for those diabolical suggestions of predictions?
I was close.
I was close. I mean, the Alphas weren't too far away, weren't they?
They got lapped, didn't they?
No, I think Brendan Hartley was the only driver to get lapped, and to be fair, he only got lapped because he locked up on the first lap, had to pit, ended up doing a 2-stop, and that's why he ended up a lap down. I think what this does show, though, with these predictions is none of us should take up gambling, because all we would do is lose our money. Okay, I've got something to show you guys. Right. You know how we've been doing this? Is, by the way, folks, this is the part of the show where the F1 talk may come to an end, and we may get into a bit more random stuff, shall we say. But I have got something that I want to show you guys. You know how we have been doing our How a Man Does sort of things over the last few episodes? Well, I haven't done one, and as far as I know, James hasn't done one, because he sent me one. However, Steve has done one. He doesn't know that he's done it, but Steve has done one.
What's this?
So this is right. I'll send it you, and let me know when you're ready to press play. And then I can show it to the viewers. So if you let me know when I can count it down, and we can talk over this one as well.
I don't think I want to hit play.
Hang on, it's loading.
I'm hanging. We'll have to come up with a song for "Hang On."
Right, I've got it. Yeah.
Are you ready, Steve?
Yeah.
Okay. So, well, this is how a man does surfing in 3, 2, 1. Let's go. Oh yeah. Oh. He's cool. Now that is how a man does surfing. Now let's have a look at how Steve does surfing.
Nice one, Steve.
Cheeky bastards.
Oh, I enjoyed that. I saw that yesterday. I thought, I've got to do that. I've got to do it.
Well, while we're on this, sort of thing about how men do things, I've got a picture that I need you to put up, Dave. And I didn't tell you about this before, or send it you before, because I didn't want you to see it beforehand.
All right.
So I'm going to send it to you and not to James, so that you can then put it up and then send it to James. So that let's make sure I've still got access to it. I should have. Well, James, you've got a dog, haven't you?
Aye.
Yeah, and I've got a dog, and we quite often sit and groom our dogs, don't we?
Yeah, she's currently just sat on cushion, yeah.
Why do I get the feeling this picture is about me?
Well, I don't know how long it's going to take you to get that picture up onto the what's it? Well, you can give it a go.
I thought it'd be that.
I sent a picture, James, by my mum. Dave went to visit my mum, and well, I don't want to say too much about the picture because the picture says it all. But we've mentioned before about my mum having a couple of dogs, and they're quite large. Yeah.
The thing is, did she tell you what Dad happened to say seconds before this happened?
Nope.
Right. I'm sat there, the dogs are sat there, right? Dad walks in and says to the dog, "Oh, I don't know what you're doing. You're not a lap dog." So, give me a second. I'll get it up on the stream. So yeah, seconds before this, I hear the words, "You're not a lap dog," and I think the dog heard it as well, because this is the situation that I ended up in. I'll send it to James as well.
It's a bit blurry, that.
It is a very blurry picture.
So yeah, one dog's on you, and then the other one's sort of like just running around with a toy in its mouth.
Yeah. Seconds later, the other one's jumping up as well.
But these are not the kind of dogs that you normally have sat on your knee, are they, Dave?
Not when you're on just a chair. No, they're too big for that. But he was adamant. He was adamant he was going to jump up on me. And yeah, thankfully he didn't stick his arse in my face though.
I mean, how much must he weigh? What, about 10 stone?
Oh God, I don't know. 10 stone might be a bit extreme. Might be a bit high for that.
He's a heavy dog. They are heavy dogs. They are big dogs.
Yeah, it looks quite small in that picture, but it really isn't. really isn't. Okay, so what else have you got for us? Oh, I know, right. We hinted last week that we might have to give James a bit of a Star Wars section, right? Because he's been such a good boy not mentioning Star Wars recently. So I reckon me and Steve, we can take a sit back for a moment. Maybe I can actually go for a shit once live on air. Yeah, we can take a little bit of a step back while James has a little bit of a chat about Star Wars. Are you ready for that, James?
Yeah, I can go for that.
And then says nothing.
Right, well, I messaged you earlier. I sent you a picture.
Yeah.
Are you alright to put that picture up? Is that alright?
Oh, you know what? I don't know. I don't know if I'm going to be able to. It's really difficult to put up a picture that you've already put up.
What? Oh, right, okay. Right, here we go then. Right. So there you can see the characters that are remaining at the end of episode 8. And I mentioned to you both, obviously, Carrie Fisher's dead, so you can rule her out. You've got you got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 characters remaining at the end of episode 8. Now, Finn, you understand his character. You sort of, right, he was a stormtrooper, now he's not, right?
Mm-hmm.
I love how in this picture as well they've even missed out that Chinese girl. Because the character that was that bad, they haven't even put her in the picture. You've got Poe Dameron, brilliant actor, Oscar Isaac. He's a brilliant pilot, and yeah, I don't know, just a bit one note really. You've got Rey, who just seems to be able to do everything amazingly. Doesn't seem to struggle at doing anything. But she's come from nothing. Then you've got Billy Lord, who's just at the side of C-3PO there, who's technically Carrie Fisher's daughter, but she's playing a character. I don't even know her character's name. You know, she's that memorable as a character. C-3PO, R2-D2, classic, and Chewie, classic. And then you've got some chap there who's an alien guy who doesn't speak English. Don't know what he says. Don't ever get any subtitles for him. And if you were to say to me, right, episode 9 starts with them characters, I'm not even that fussed for it, because there's nothing about these characters so far that actually make me go, yeah, I want to see what happens with them.
How are they going to take on the New Order?
Exactly. I mean, there's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. 9 of them to take on an army.
Maybe this is where they get wiped out.
Well, I don't know. I mean, I just feel like the Blu-ray's coming out. I'm not going to buy it. I just want Disney to know that they can't just screw with fans. I know that there'll be plenty of people out there that will go and buy it for the kids and whatever. But this will probably be the first time that it's release of a Star Wars movie, and I ain't gone out to get it on opening day. That's not
going to be true. That's not going to be true, surely.
But do you want to know the weird thing about this, right? I can see the point that James is making. Looking at the picture, it doesn't inspire you to think, oh, I'm looking forward to the next one. In a way, what might creep in is because I look at that and think, how are they going to take it? I'm going to have to watch the next one to see what happens. It may build to something, but having said that, what I found myself doing is when I've watched a film and I like a film, right, some of the best films I've ever seen, and I have done this, I've sat there, watched a film and gone, you know what, that was amazing, and I've hit play again straight away. Right? I have done that with films. Now, this film has been available for me to watch. I don't know if I can say where, but it has been available for me to watch for a while now. And I have had no interest whatsoever in watching episode 8. And I mean, I've watched Rogue One a few times, and I've watched
Force Awakens.
That's the one. Force Awakens a few times. But episode 8, I've just had no desire to watch it.
Now, I understand what Rian Johnson was trying to do. In his head, he was thinking, right, what's the worst thing that can happen to every single character? And he went through it. He went, right, okay, Finn, what's the worst thing that can happen to him? Well, to be fair, what is the worst thing that can happen to Finn?
Survive.
Yeah. At the moment where I thought, you know what, this has come to a decent bit here, was when he was flying straight towards that gun thing, The music were building. I was thinking, fucking hell, he's going to sacrifice himself to save everybody. And then fucking Chinese girl comes along and fucking fucks it all.
She was South Korean.
She was South. Oh, you want delivery? You want delivery?
Deliver from Hondo. But yeah, no. That scene, I cannot sit there and watch that scene. I get right into that particular part of it, and then as soon as she turns up and knocks the ship, I sit there and I just cringe. And I just think, why won't there be anybody else within Lucasfilm? Because obviously they've done screenings and stuff before this was released, and plenty of like going through and showing executives. Why didn't anyone say this is bullshit, or have get the balls out and go?
Because they need him in the next film.
It's probably because he's on a 3-film contract. He's got to be in the next one, and that was something I was actually surprised at. Right, it is mainly your fault, James. Really, I've not really ever watched that many making ofs. Right, but over the last few months, I've watched quite a few. I even watched. I actually still haven't got to the end of it. I keep falling asleep. The Jaws 2 making of. But something that surprised me is how many times actors are signed up to 2, 3, 4 movie deals, but it's not necessarily specific. So, for example, the guy who plays Finn might have signed a 3-movie deal, but it's not necessarily a 3 Star Wars movie deal. It'll be 3 Paramount movies or whatever, whichever company it is. Fucking Disney taking over everything in a minute. So, for example, there was an actor in a recent film who had signed a 3-contract deal. He'd done the first 2 films, and both of them were pretty shit. And they kept trying to get him to do the third, and every one they were basically offering him was wank, right? And he really didn't want to do it. And then it got to a point where his lawyer basically turned around and said, "Look, if you don't accept the next one they offer you, your time limit is up of serving this contract, and they'll be able to then claim back all the money from the first 2 films and sue you for not completing your contract." So he ended up being in a right dive of a film, and the amount of actors that's actually happened to. So when we've talked about Samuel L. Jackson doing a few shit films because he finds them funny, there's plenty of actors out there that have been in shit films because effectively they've been forced to from signing multi-movie contracts with the studios.
Yeah, but unfortunately, you've got Daisy Ridley. She's the main character. I can see her at the end of the next one saying, because she'll have signed like a 3-movie deal. You know, it's a trilogy. I can see her at the end of this last one going, "I'm not doing another Star Wars movie," because if she does that, then it forces Disney to go, "Fucking hell, we're gonna have to pay her a lot of money if we want her to come back." Mm-hmm. You know what I mean? But as well, the backlash to her character in Episode 7, everybody were going, "Oh, she's a lovely girl, and you know, you sort of like get behind her and all this lot." But by the end of Episode 8, I was like, Kylo Ren. When Kylo Ren says, "You've got no place in this story," and when Luke was saying, "What are you doing here?"
Yeah, I
were even thinking, "Yeah, what are you doing here?" Because no offense, your character, it's not. There's no character to you. There's no.
She should have turned around and said, "I've signed a 3-movie deal."
She might as well have done, because
the thing is that I'm going to blow your minds now though. Think about it though. What if she is some major character, but because of those comments of "What are you doing here? You don't deserve to be here," you could be taking it in that way of, "Yeah, you are nobody, you're nothing, you shouldn't be here." What is that noise?
No, it's probably my iPad. But
That's all.
think-
But if she maybe they were saying it. It's a little bit like okay, if President Trump turned up on your doorstep, you might go, "What the fuck are you doing here? You shouldn't be here." One person
No,
could take that.
I'd just say, fuck off.
No, I'd say Stormy Daniels ain't here, mate. You have to go next door. Actually, I shouldn't say that. I'll probably get sued.
no, you won't. No, you won't.
No.
Only if you know it's true and you've said it, you get sued.
Oh, right,
But no, I think what it is, and I've said this to you before, in the original trilogy and in the prequels, Anakin Skywalker were shit hot. Like, he could fly a pod racer at the age of 9. He could blow up a Trade Federation battleship at age of 9. And, he
without
but yet,
training.
without training, and people were like, he's the chosen one. He's like, fucking, he's going to be, you know what I mean? He's going to be shit off. And little did they know that they were basically signing on what was going to be the ultimate
The
fucking nightmare.
Louis Suarez of Star Wars.
Yeah. So, with her being, and then you've got his son, Luke, where in the original trilogy, everything he did was on the knife edge. It were like, the only thing he ever did, which was like, kind of like shit hot, was when he blew up the Death Star. But the rest of the movies, he was living on a knife edge. Everything he did was sort of like struggling to even get a lightsaber to fly towards him, struggling to,
Survive.
it's just to survive. Yeah, struggling all the time.
Struggling to raise some stones.
Exactly. And the fact that at the end of episode 8, which technically Rian Johnson wrote it to start at the very end of episode 7, which basically means if you were to watch these back to back, it'd be in a time span of meeting Rey to the end of episode 8, you'd probably say it's about a week and a bit. In a time span from the beginning of The Force Awakens to the end of The Last Jedi. By the end of The Last Jedi, she's just able to pick up about 50 rocks as if it's fuck all and save everybody. And it's stuff like that where it's like, where's the drama? If she can just do everything and nothing's a problem, where's the drama? The drama would have been amazing if Kylo Ren had have been going after him. They're trying to get out, and she's struggling to lift the rocks, and they're screaming, going, "God, he's coming, he's coming!"
And he kills them all.
How fucking... and she feels guilty because she hasn't saved him, and basically the whole resistance are dead because she wasn't good enough. Wouldn't that be
James, you need to keep the noise down.
Yeah. But wouldn't that be a bigger character plot thing than what we've got? Because she don't struggle with anything, and I don't know. But yeah, and the fact that people are turning around going, "Oh, she's a nobody." Well, yeah, technically Anakin was a nobody, but people were on the lookout saying, "Oh, he's the chosen one," which sort of led credence to, "Oh, well, it kind of makes sense that he's super powerful. Plus, you know that he's going to turn into Darth Vader." But there's nothing about these characters that make me go, "Oh yeah."
Oh, hang on. There is. Is Daisy Ridley a babe?
Yeah.
Okay. There's nothing about these characters that makes you go, yeah. Is Daisy Ridley a babe? Yeah.
No, but
I mean, she's also female, so she can multitask.
Oh yeah.
That's why she can do multiple stones at the same time.
Well, you know what, Steve? Your wife can multitask as well. She can put things on your ears while getting the dog to lick them off, and video in it.
Hello.
Deadly silence. Deadly silence. Oh, don't worry, Steve. I'm not going to show that on the podcast. You're all right.
She's probably been sticking stuff elsewhere and getting a dog to lick it off as well.
When you pull out a gummy bear from your boxers later, you'll know what's happened.
But yeah,
go on, James.
Just getting back to this. I mean, Finn pretty much did exactly the same thing as what he did in The Force Awakens. It was just so... His character did not... For me, his character did not go through an arc.
Yeah.
It basically was the same old character that you saw. And I think that's the mistake of making a Star Wars movie that starts literally when Episode 7 finishes. There's no time to develop anything.
I think it depends on what kind of arc you're on about. 'Cause if you think about it, from The Force Awakens, he went from I don't want to kill people to I'm running away, I'm escaping, to I need to find that robot, to I need to run away and escape, to them willing to risk his life in Episode 8, and someone going, actually, you know what, yeah, you're doing the right thing, but out of the way, it's not your job to do it. So I do see where you're coming from, but I do think there is a bit of an arc there. It's just not. It's not a storyline that. I think it's one of those things. Seeing him being saved in the way he was, it was like that's just cheesy.
Right. Yeah. So obviously I can't speak very loud now, so I'm gonna flip it round, right? You've just talked me through Finn's arc. Can you talk me through Poe's arc?
Well, Poe's an interesting one because he shouldn't even be in Episode 8. He was actually meant to die in Episode 7. So they've made him up kind of as they go along. And I think they're kind of hoping, I think in many ways, that he'll take over the role of Han Solo. But the thing is, I didn't find his character that interesting in The Force Awakens. Unfortunately, I didn't. It was kind of like, well, who are you then?
And even in The Last Jedi, yeah, he sort of stood up to that girl with purple hair, which annoyed the fuck out of me. But he didn't even. I mean, he constantly cut to him, just going, "Oh, come on, Finn, where are you? Come on." It's like you should be the one that's like, "Fucking, I'm gonna go do this because nobody else. I'm gonna go and do what I think I should do." Because nobody else, you know what I mean? He should have been a rebel against the rebels, trying to save them. You know, but
what I don't get though is why that woman with the purple hair couldn't just say what her plan was.
Exactly, she'd have just gone. We're heading to this planet, and if we jump to hyperspace at this moment in time, we can pull away and we can make it so our lasers are ineffective. But the one thing that is a massive, massive plot hole for me is they go, "Oh, they're only tracking the lead ship." Well, if they're only tracking the lead ship and they knew that, why didn't they go have a word with the girl with purple hair and say, "Look, they're only tracking this lead ship. We've got 2 other ships out there. Bring them over, dock with us. We'll put as much fuel as we can in them. Yep. Everybody get in them ships, and we'll jump to we'll jump to hyperspace. Yeah. They'll only be able to track this ship, and we'll just leave this ship just
with nobody on it.
With nobody on it, yeah. And then they won't be able to track us. No, so that's a massive plot hole. Plus, as well, Chewie and Rey jump out of hyperspeed. She jumps out in a little escape pod / coffin down to the First Order, and Chewie just blasts off into hyperspace. Why didn't he just blast into hyperspace, land on the Rebel cruiser, go, "Everybody get on this," and then blast off again? You know what I mean? It's stuff like that where you like, there's 2 massive plot holes there where the plot could have been saved, and this is the thing. I'm just baffled. I'm just baffled that in this day and age, George Lucas might not be the greatest filmmaker,
but he is probably one of the best people to come up with ideas, designs, structures.
It's a little bit like, I mean, I'm going to sort of mention football again, but you can have some of the most tactically aware and advanced managers in the world, and there are some, but they wouldn't have the man management skills to get people to play together. And that's kind of what it needs. I mean, I mentioned I was watching the Jaws 2 making of, and I found it very interesting that very early on in the programme, they basically said we were looking at the possibility of making a Jaws 2. A few ideas had been bandied about, but as soon as the conversation started, basically the person that wrote Jaws 1 and most of the people that were involved in the first Jaws movie said no. We've already done. Steven Spielberg said, no, we've done what we needed to do. We've made the best possible shark movie you could make. There is nothing that I want to do better or different or anything like that. I'm out. And there was quite a few of them that sort of said that, but the studio was like, no, we think this is a good idea and we think we should do it. And admittedly, thinking back, I never did think Jaws 2 was anywhere near as good as the first one. So, without the likes of Spielberg, these geniuses, these masters, the points can get missed easily.
Yeah, but as well, you mentioned about watching Rogue One a few times. Isn't it ironic that obviously with Star Wars characters, that the older characters from the original trilogy, they've had 40 years of sinking into pop culture and stuff like that. But isn't it weird how you can do Rogue One, you start the movie, you spend the majority of the movie with all these characters, and then as soon as you drop Darth Vader in there, you don't give a shit about anybody else. You're like, that's Darth Vader, and I'm focused on what every line of dialogue he says, you're focused on what he says. And I know obviously Darth Vader is the ultimate bad guy, apart from the Emperor, is the ultimate bad guy. How can it be that? I mean, I didn't mind Rogue One. I thought it were a decent movie. I proudly have that in my collection. But how can it be that Darth Vader's in the movie for all of 3 minutes in total, but yet he steals the movie?
Yeah. I mean,
and
I know what you wanted. You wanted a Star Wars, a Darth Vader movie.
You
see that?
Even if it wasn't from the point of view of, we're literally constantly with Darth Vader, but even if it was just this character who's been hunted down by Darth Vader and he's got like a vendetta, and man, just imagine her. But as well, like, do it in that kind of Rogue One style where it's like a little bit scary. It's a little bit like a horror movie, but it's not. It's Star Wars. But as well, like, as a kid, I remember I had a book and it were about the history of Star Wars. It had loads of paintings by like Ralph McQuarrie, who did all the concept art and stuff like that. And I remember there were a picture, and I think it were like in I can't remember what book it was now. It were a picture. I think it was like a visual guide for original trilogy, and it showed a picture of the Emperor, and then in the bottom corner there was a small picture, and it was like an artist drawing, and it was Ralph McQuarrie, and he'd drawn this temple. Now, this temple were on Coruscant, which obviously, watching the prequels, you know what Coruscant is. It's like New York all over the planet, but with like flying cars and stuff like that.
Yeah.
And it showed this weird spiky castle, and it was surrounded by like other skyscrapers, but it were basically like a massive, the biggest, tallest skyscraper on a planet full of skyscrapers, and it was all black and looked like a haunted house in a You know what I mean? Haunted house in New York, some kind of weird thing. I remember just looking at that picture, thinking, my imagination was going, God, what's the Emperor up to? You know, like, who is? Obviously, you're kind of like, oh, the Emperor is sort of mentioned in episode 4, then you sort of see him in a hologram in episode 5, and then eventually you meet him in episode 6, and he basically turns out that you realise Darth Vader's his bitch, and you're like, oh shit, if Darth Vader's his bitch, he must be bad.
Yeah.
But I remember just looking at that picture of his castle, and it said the Emperor's castle. The Emperor's living in this like hideout on the capital planet, and not much is known about him. Now, that to me is more interesting than a fucking Han Solo movie.
I'm still gonna watch the Han Solo movie. To be fair,
if it didn't have Amelia Clark in it, would you be as fussed?
Yeah, I think. Okay, I'm definitely not as much as a Star Wars. I don't have any Star Wars underwear like you do, James.
Actually, I do have a pair of Star Wars underwear.
But I mean, I've always enjoyed watching the Star Wars movies, and I think even if Amelia Clark wasn't in it, I'd still watch it out of interest. So yeah, I would still watch it. I think sometimes people miss the fact that for a story to be told, it has to have an ending, and if they try and prolong Star Wars, it won't work because it needs that ending. And that's kind of what the original 3 kind of gave us. And I don't have a problem with some spin-off movies. I mean, it's like, for example, I've enjoyed all of the Spider-Man movies, all of the Superman movies, even Batman vs Superman. Okay, the latest, like Justice League, little bit questionable at bits, but overall not a bad movie. But there's things like Wolverine. Wolverine as a spin-off, brilliant, absolutely brilliant movie, and progressing that into Logan and so very good. And one of the reasons why Logan is such a good film is because it has an ending.
Yeah.
And I think if, as a viewer, watching it and going, right, that's the end, and even if you think, well, maybe he'll come back, well, you got the actor saying, look, no, that's it, we're done, right? Okay, fair enough, no problem. It lets you appreciate the story a little bit more. So I think if they try and do too much with Star Wars, then it won't work. I mean, you look at the Marvel movies, right? I love pretty much all of them. But things like, okay, Thor, the Thor movies got bashed, right, for not being very good. Thor Ragnarok, fucking brilliant. Because I actually watched a bit of the making of that. It was actually a bit of a bloopers. Have you seen Thor Ragnarok?
I haven't, no, but I know of it.
Right. The director is also an actor, right? And he plays a character in the film. He plays Korg, right? He's a stone guy, and it's fucking funny as fuck. But seeing this video that I did, this guy is a practical joker, right? And he's the director of the movie. And one of his parameters for the movie was, this should be fun. It should be a funny movie to watch, right? Mm-hmm. And because of the type of person that he is and the way that like you see video clips of people on set having a laugh and a joke and playing pranks on each other. Well, he's the guy doing it, and not because he feels he has to. It's just him. He's a New Zealander. It's his sense of humour. He's just a funny guy. So he's making his actors, his cast, fucking crease and laugh, and what do? They take that into their movie. So if the directors are making the cast feel stale, you're going to end up with stale movies. Whereas if your directors are making your cast feel fantastic, they're going to potentially make slightly more fantastic movies.
Yeah, it's transferable across everything.
Yeah,
but I think this might be one of the main things for me. I personally think that the producer, Kathleen Kennedy, is not picking the best people for the directing.
Yeah.
I mean, for me, how many people would rip your right arm off to direct a Star Wars? If somebody turned around to me and when you get to direct a Star Wars movie, I would be like fucking a kid in the candy shop. I'd be like, oh my fucking god! Of all the negatives of what could happen if you fucked it up, yeah, you know your career's over. But at the same time, you have the biggest potential to show what you actually can do.
Yeah.
And I just don't see it. I don't see... And as well, with these Marvel movies, yeah, I kind of get a bit... There's kind of this thing in my head where I feel like each movie is just a promotion for the next movie. And I don't want that to happen with Star Wars.
Yeah.
But like I was saying earlier, you need an ending.
Yeah.
But I feel like I don't even know the characters yet.
Yeah. How can you
And I've watched 2 movies, and I feel like I still don't know the characters, so I don't think... Whereas if there'd have been a bit more meat on the bones in terms of the characters, and I mean, even the state of the galaxy, how does the Republic, the New Republic, go from being ruling the galaxy to one blast from a space station, a planet laser bolt, and all of a sudden there's nobody, and you know what I mean? A few days later, there's only 5 people who are part of the Republic left.
Yeah.
It just, my head's like,
Well, maybe
Star Wars
there
like
are
4
more.
planets now, or what?
Maybe there's more of them. They're just all over the different planets everywhere, and they just need to reconvene.
But yet, even in the prequels, I know that people complain, going, "Oh, you know, it's too political, it's too this, that, and other." At least you understood what were going on with the galaxy. The original trilogy, you understood straight away. You were like, you've got an evil empire, and you've got a little a rebel alliance that are struggling to fight back, and the empire in control. And in the prequels, you've got the Republic in control. You've got these odd movements called the Separatists that have droid armies, and they're trying to basically disrupt the Republic.
Now, I know an empire that wasn't in control.
What's that?
The Empire of James. Do you want to tell the story you told us just before we came live today?
Oh my god! Oh, you would not believe it. Well, this is it. I'm sort of getting a bit worried now. I'm thinking, am I gonna? If I'm 28 now, and this is second time in like 2 months. If I'm 28 now, what am I going to be like when I'm like, if I make it to 70? I'm going to need a nappy. I was walking with my girlfriend and my dog, and then I was completely fine, focused. And I remember looking at this sign on this house. I thought, you know, like sometimes rather than a house number, people have like a name for a house. And I had a look, and this house had a name, and I'm reading it, and the name and the house just looked so tacky and big that I was focused on that, and then my stomach just went, ugh. And I just out of nowhere, I just had to stop. And I was like, Vicky, and she was like, continued walking, like, Vicky, and she was like, what? I went, I'm gonna have to turn round. And she went, what do you mean? I went, well, and then I sort of like squidging my finger together to like simulate an arsehole. I says, if that's my arsehole, it's right there. It's right up against it. It's not out yet, but it's literally
Touching
ready.
cloth.
Oh yeah. And I got home about half an hour later. We were only about a 15-minute walk, but walking back I was gingerly walking. And as soon as I sat on the toilet, bang! It were there, it were everywhere. Oh, it was like a bomb had gone off, like a grenade in the toilet. Anyway,
hang on, was it one of those where you thought, I'm going to wipe this before I sit down just to check?
Oh God!
He'd have pulled out a hot
I
dog.
can't believe it. I don't even think I got my arse cheeks on the seat before it was blasting. I'm like, oh no! And then Vicky were going, oh bloody hell, your bowels are so bad, blah 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 blah. And I'm like, yeah, I can't believe it. And then I completely carried on with the rest of my day, and I were all right actually. And then the following morning, wakes up, and then Vicky even turned to me and went, "Oh no, I think I've got it now." So like, I must have passed it on to her. So at least I know it's probably just a little bug rather than me just being
Old.
Old, yeah. But God, it scares me. But back to Star Wars. With this,
The Force Awakened.
Yeah. With this trilogy that's being made, 7, 8 and 9, what the fuck's going on with the galaxy? Nobody knows. And I think this is just the main problem. If you have a proper producer, you'd go, right, before we even start, what is the main arc of this trilogy? Because a trilogy means one story spread over 3 movies.
Yeah.
And
We're supposed to be in the middle of the story at this point, and it feels like we're at the end.
yeah, it does. It feels like we're at the end, and like if there's the ninth part to this overall story, I'm sort of like, what the frig is going on? I don't really understand Rey because I don't know all about her other than she's just amazing at everything. I do understand Finn, but I'm not that fussed about him. I do understand Poe, he's an amazing pilot, but so is Rey, so you know what I mean? There's no really to go with him either. You've got Chewie, who's just a tag-along character now. He's not an actual think on his feet like he was in Return of the Jedi, like getting in an ATST and blasting shit out of people. You've got R2-D2 and C-3PO who are just completely abandoned. They might as well not even be in these movies, even though in the original, for the first 20 minutes, they were the characters the first 20 minutes, it's them two. And I kind of think maybe if you were going to go to episode 9, you might have to do that. Go with, let's start it, and you're with the droids for the first 20 minutes. Just to
Maybe
completely...
C-3PO is going to save the galaxy.
Oh my God.
Maybe the Ewoks were right and C-3PO is a god.
Ooh,
Maybe, yeah. Maybe he's got the Force.
Yeah.
Maybe he's the chosen one.
But if you think about it now, right? If this is meant to be the Skywalker saga, you've got Anakin dead, Luke, Leia dead. We don't know that Luke had any kids, but we know for a fact that Leia had Ben. So Ben is the only remaining Skywalker. If this is a Skywalker set, what's up, Bella? If Ben is, oh cheers, just burping my face. If Ben is the only remaining Skywalker, even though he's technically Ben Solo, then the only way I see it ending is him dying. But I just don't.
Maybe he's the one that's going to save the galaxy.
Yeah. Well, he's the new supreme leader of the First Order, so I just don't know. I feel like it's a directionless ship at the end of Episode 8 when. I don't know, but even
Maybe
though
I'm
sat here thinking about it, I'm thinking I don't really care about Episode 9 now, and that is baffling coming from me.
If he is the supreme leader, right, he could quite easily go, right, let's just have peace in the galaxy.
No, well, he's a complete lunatic.
Well, there's only going to be one way you find out, isn't there? You're going to have to watch the next one. Do we know what it's going to be called yet?
No, but isn't it weird how before we saw episode 8, I were really G'd up. I had loads of ideas of what might happen, and you know this, that, and other. And now I'm at a point where I'm like, I don't care.
Confused.
And so that's within 4 months, my brain's just gone. I love Star Wars to bits, and now I'm like, I love George Lucas's Star Wars. I'm not right fussed about this.
That's interesting. What films can do to you, isn't it?
But it is baffling. It's because I were even saying today to my mate Paul, like, I remember being 9-year-old and saying to my mum, "Oh, Phantom Menace comes out on VHS today. Am I all right to have it, please?" And I remember running home from school to watch it, and I must have watched it about 3 times in the same night. And I just don't have that excitement anymore.
Mm-hmm.
I do for watching the George Lucas 6 movies, but The Force Awakens, Rogue One I do like, mainly because it's got Darth Vader in it. But Force Awakens and The Last Jedi, I've got, and this is coming from a major hardcore Star Wars fan, I've got no fuss for watching it. And
you know what? I think because I've been refusing to watch episode 8 again. I think I'm gonna have to watch it and just see, because obviously I watched it when I was in the cinema, and I think that changes how your experience of watching a film. Yeah, it's bigger screen, it's louder, but I mean, when you sat there with
you're
the
forever
arse,
going, you're forever going, oh fucking hell, this hurts.
I'm busting for a shit, but I can't go because I'll miss a bit of the film. So maybe watching it at home, taking a bit more in, might be a different experience. I'm going to have to wait and see. I'll have to give it a try. I'm interested to know though, James, whether you watched, we told you last week about a comedy film to watch.
Oh shit! No, I haven't watched it. No,
All right,
so.
okay.
I've spent most of this week watching Stranger Things on Netflix with Vicky.
Well, I know we chatted a little bit before we came on air, but obviously we talked about it on air last week, so I'm going to sort of mention it again. We're talking about how you weren't feeling too great last week or the week before, and we talked about like cutting down the amount of work that you were doing on the league that you're running.
Yeah.
You were saying that you have cut down the amount of work that you were doing, and it does seem to have helped. And I then jokingly said, did you find yourself sitting there thinking, oh, well, what do I do now? But the thing is, I've been through that transition, Steve's been through that transition, and you're kind of going through it now. So I sort of want to sort of get your opinion on it a little bit more, that, like, perhaps more about how you're feeling, whether you feel your stress levels have come down, whether you're not feeling as drained and as tired.
Oh yeah, no, I'm feeling 10 times better, because I'm actually able to do pretty much 95% the same way I would want to do, only I've basically just cut down the amount of time that I would editing, which would just take up way too much time. But as well, it's just about being more efficient with your time. And I think I was just getting to a point where, even though I didn't want to admit it, it was draining me.
Yeah.
And it means you eat less munchies now as well while you're editing.
Yeah, exactly.
I can't comment. I've got through almost a whole pack of biscuits today, although I've not had my dinner yet. So, I mean, it's interesting you say about like using your time. I mean, I mentioned about how I was quite stressed sort of leading up to Sunday and having this race, because I always find racing is it is a challenge, but it's something you have to practice for. And when you've put in quite a bit of practice time and things don't go well, it's one of those things. If you drive badly and things don't go well, it's not easy, but at least you can go, yeah, you know, it's my own fault, and I'll work on that. But when technology goes, nah, I'm going to intervene, I'm going to fuck up everything for you, that's harder for me to just accept. So I found that, like, last night, when I was like, right, okay, I need to find out what the problem was. I may have been able to find out what the problem was, or at least avoid the problem within 10 minutes. But in my hunt of finding out what that problem was, it must have taken me 4 or 5 hours. And then once that problem, I was like, right, okay, I think that was the problem, or a contributing factor. Now I can perhaps spend a bit of time driving, and the next thing I know, it's 4 o'clock in the morning.
Damn.
Yeah. And as I mentioned to you earlier, that time just seems to have, like, today has just been really weird for me. But it's like, you know, the predictions picture that I made, I had an idea of just making something dead simple, but it turns out that when you've got 3 persons' predictions and there's 6 of them, it's something that you need to sort of if you're going to visually show it, it's actually a lot of little things that need changing. Now, when we were doing them towards the end of the last F1 season, I had like one picture with our predictions, another picture with our points, and it looked alright. And this time around I thought, well, you know what, to save me time, I'm going to just have it on the one picture so I can show what our predictions were and show our total points. At the end it's going to be dead basic, dead simple, but hopefully when it comes to editing it the next time, it should just be a case of just writing the stuff on rather than having to create things. The problem is that one picture took me about an hour and a half to do today, whereas I'm sure normally it would probably only take me 20 minutes. But because of what happened last night, I think it's just made my brain go, no, you know what, I'm going to make everything go a bit slower for you.
Yeah. But that's it. I think once you get yourself in that mindset of, oh, this is taking forever, that it does take forever because you're already telling, like, it was weird, like, as I were editing, I would find other things to do rather than just focus on editing, because you just would, just because your brain's like, oh, I've had enough of editing today because I've been doing it for 5 hours, so I want to do something different. But obviously you're just taking your time away from, you know what I mean, you could have got it done in one day rather than 3 days.
Yeah.
But yeah, I don't know. I do kind of just think, in a way, it's just helped me a ton this week. Yeah. Being able to do that. I mean, already I've got all me points tables finished. I've got all me footage ready. All I've got to do is edit, just literally put it all together and do a commentary track.
Yeah.
So really, normally it takes me about 5-6 days to get it from finishing a race to actually get it up on YouTube. I'm thinking I might start to try and get it uploaded to YouTube by Thursday, then I've got Friday, Saturday, Sunday to myself.
Yeah. I mean, the thing is, I know I've done it and Steve's done it and you've had it, whether you've noticed it or not. Because you've been giving yourself so much to do, you'll be sat there going, right, okay, I'm going to do this editing, but while I'm doing this editing, I've also need to do this. So you'd end up doing both, or part of one and all of the other. And because you're trying to do multiple things at the same time, something's going to fall by the wayside. And usually it'd be what you're doing, partially it's yourself physically, and I think that was definitely something that was happening to you. I mean, for you to be sort of as drained as you was for 2 weeks in a row was like, yeah, it's a bit of a warning sign, and sometimes you do just have to go, hang on a minute, yeah, I can do all that stuff and I could make it look better, I want to do more, but actually can I do less and still make it? Because it's one of those things, the most important part is what happens on the track. The rest is all a bonus.
Yeah, exactly, yeah.
So,
but that's it, I think, as well. By doing that as well, I finally found a way of kind of working round a situation which I wanted to be able to. The annoying thing with Project Cars 2 is when you're doing the replay, I've explained this before, either you can have all the information up there or you can have nothing up there.
Yeah.
Whereas, and while you're racing, you can change the screen and make it completely different and move boxes and stuff like this. But whenever you do the replay, there's nothing you can move. It's
Yeah.
either there or it's not. But what I've worked out is, through my editing stuff, all I have to do is literally move the footage a bit lower down. I get my logo up there constantly, so my logo's on show all the time.
Yeah.
So it's a bit more, as you're watching it, it's subconsciously going in there for, I better subscribe. The only thing I need to work on, I think I've got 67 subscribers. And I'm aiming for 500 by end of the year, so it's a bit of a tall ask. Because we're already in end of March, aren't we? So I've only got 9 months. But I've set myself that goal, but I'm not going to try and go mental over it. I just think if the work's good enough, the subscribers will turn up. So
Yes, I mean, when we were running the leagues, I was never a big fan of trying to promote in loads of places. But one thing I did find was, for example, with F1 was I did have a thread set up on the Codemasters forum, where all of the links for the live races that we did were put up there. So if people were on the forums but weren't aware of the league, then they could be aware, and it did boost the numbers of viewers and subscribers. So what you might want to do is perhaps look for the actual Project Cars 2 Twitter feed or Facebook page, and see if other people post the links of their races on there, because if they've got, say, 100,000 subscribers on their followers on their Twitter, you post it on there, a bit extreme, but it's potentially 100,000 people that could reach. It ain't going to reach that many, but it's a potential. You only need a few to watch it and go, actually, you know what, I like that, I told my mates about that, and then it can help progress. And if you're lucky enough, Project Cars like it, retweet it, or whatever. But it's one of those things. I mean, you don't have to do it, but you might find that if you decided, right, okay, my viewer numbers is this, my subscribers is this, it has been for a while. Okay, I'm going to do a test for this next one. I'm going to pop a link on there and see what happens. And if all of a sudden, bang, double, you know where it's come from.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, but that's it. It's all a learning game, but I just want to be able to, by end of year, be kind of like in a decent position. It's going all right. I'm probably getting about 3 or 4 subscribers a week, which is good.
You've got more than we have.
But yeah, like I say, I do just. I think at the end of the day, I think I find that I actually enjoy the editing and commentating more than the actual racing. I do enjoy the racing.
Yeah.
But
the way I'd look at it, James, is don't worry so much about your subscribers. Do it because you enjoy doing it.
Yeah.
And the subscribers will come along as and when, But even if your subscribers list doesn't increase, it's not going to stop you from doing it because you enjoy doing it.
Yeah, exactly, yeah.
I mean, it's one of the things with the racing league that we were running. I mean, obviously, the YouTube channel started off with none, and I mean, the live viewers wasn't many, but progressively, year on year, the numbers improved and improved. And sometimes it takes stuff. I mean, people might look at the I'll Tell You What channel and go, well, don't see why they bother. They've only got 12 subscribers, blah, blah, blah. Well, yeah, that may be the case, but we don't do it because of how many subscribers we have or haven't got. We do it because we like to get together, have a chat, talk about how many times you shoot yourself, and if people want to listen into that, then they're going to listen into it. I mean, we haven't really advertised it anywhere. We've not been spreading it around. I mean, okay, I'll post it on my own Facebook page, and I wouldn't be surprised if many of my family members or extended family have listened in at points thinking, oh, I wonder what David's up to. Holy cow, he doesn't half swear a lot. And might be offended, and if that's the case, I apologise. But at the end of the day, I'm not going to hide who I am and the way that I talk on our own podcast. It's one of those things. I mean, okay, when I'm doing commentary, I think I've sworn once on commentary by accident. There was a driver it wasn't Jason, by the way, it was a driver whose surname was Schmidt, and he was he was racing with someone whose surname was also in the S's. I can't remember who it was, and I accidentally called him shit, right? And it was total accident. Schmidt, shit, very, very close, just a slip of the tongue. But so commentary's different. I approached that very professionally, and okay, yeah, I approached this with a bit of a plan, but it doesn't mean that I shouldn't talk the way that I perhaps normally would. Although actually, it depends on this is me before playing video games, during football.
I'm so going to get you a recording of Dave just ranting at some point.
Yeah.
I did not press that fucking button. What the fuck's he turned round for? I was aiming that fucking way.
This is a fucking old one. I'll waste my fucking time.
No fucking point playing this if it's not me pressing the buttons to tell it what the fuck to do.
I think my most common line at the moment is there is absolutely no fucking point me holding a controller if the fucking inputs I put on it do absolutely fucking nothing. But there you go. Right. Well, I don't know about you guys. I know James has already had the knock on the wall, so I've got a feeling that our plan of potentially doing the hando we couldn't do last time out.
Well, I'm just going to say next week, with there being no race at the weekend coming, will basically be a preview of the Bahrain race. It'll give us an opportunity to do it then, I'd have thought.
Okay, I'm okay with doing that, and unless you want to get it out there, James.
Yeah, no, that's cool with me.
Okay,
completely fine.
But wow, but well, I think I've pretty much covered everything that I would have talked about this week that I can think of.
It's not what I can think of off the top of my head.
No, I think the only thing we can really do is have another look at Steve surfing, I reckon.
Yeah.
So I'll put that up on the live stream. Yeah, that is. To be fair, that is pretty cool what that first guy does with the surfboard. I mean, fair play to him. And then here comes Steve. Oh dear, oh dear. That is the kind.
Yeah, what the hell's this? Why is the Watto with a chained up woman with a fan?
Can you tell James hasn't been on the I'll Tell You What chat for the last 40 minutes?
Yeah.
Since you started talking Star Wars, you never looked at the chat.
No.
And in that time, Steve sent a really dodgy picture.
Right, lovely. Cheers, Steve.
It's alright. I was trying to put you off, but it didn't work.
To be fair, though, I think with Steve having been awake late, I don't know if he's seen that Katy Perry video that you sent, James.
I haven't. No, I need to watch that.
Yeah.
Yeah, you do.
What else was there? Oh yeah, there was the Rachel Riley tweet as well. Yeah, there is something special about it. I like the way, right? It's a tweet which has been caught out on Countdown again. It's ended up this time saying no panties. And she's, I mean, this is what I like about her, right? She tweets the letters board trolling again. Trust me, I would never go to work with no panties. I mean, that's the thing. This girl has got a sense of humour. And I like the fact that nobody at Channel 4 seems to be restricting us. Nobody's saying, you know what, you shouldn't be tweeting this stuff.
Yeah, you should be coming to work with no panties.
Oh my God, Steve, what the hell? God, I knew this had happened. I knew that we'd get into a random bit and the dodgy pictures have started being sent. What I'm looking at now is one at doggy styling another at.
No, is that James laughing or snoring at this point?
I think that might be a laugh. However, I think it might just be about time to bring this one to an end, I reckon, guys. We've covered just about everything that we needed to.
I believe so.
Yeah.
Okie doke. Right, in that case then, time to bring this to an end. So thank you everyone for listening in. We should be live again next Tuesday at 8 PM UK time for a preview of or our thoughts about the Bahrain Grand Prix that's going to be coming up in a couple of weeks time. So yeah, come and join us for that one. Make sure you like, subscribe, share, tell your friends. Don't tell anyone under the age of 18, they might get offended. Actually, no, you could tell them as well. I just still can't believe that we started the show off with Steve having a shit. I mean, that's a new record, that is, straight away. Anyway, right, time to say goodbye, guys.
Right, adios.
See you later.
See you in a bit.
See you in a bit.
Blah 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 blah.